are live.
Okay.
Welcome to Paradigm Shift TV 314. This is your brother, Pianki Patah Muntu Neferamun Ra. And today we have another powerful show with a powerful comedic queen. Before we get into our spiel, let me do my usual greeting. Let me say hotep to my fellow comedic brothers and sisters. Let me say God bless to my Christian brothers and sisters. Let me say assalamu alaikum to my brothers and sisters in the NOI. Let me say Islam to my Moorish brothers and sisters. Let me say shalom to my Hebrew Israelite brothers and sisters. And let me say peace to my brothers and sisters in the nation of gods and earths. As you know, I say that greeting for one reason and one reason only. It's because if you're Black, I'm with you. And I hope that you're with me. Our different ideologies shouldn't keep us from uniting. We can have unity without uniformity. And we can disagree, I should say, without being disrespectfully disagreeable. And with that, my queen, please introduce yourself.
Ankh Maat, everyone. I am Menyet Ankh Maat Menta, and I hail from New Jersey. I am a school teacher by day, and I'm a comedic lifestyle blogger. I have a couple of groups over on Facebook. I have my own Instagram that I run. I'm working on a YouTube. Slowly but surely, we're working on getting that up. But my main concern and focus is comedic living in the 21st century. I pretty much came up with this idea just really after I initiated into a temple. So I do belong to the Temple of Anu in New Jersey. And essentially, I saw everybody kind of were priests. And I said, well, I'm not a priest. What does it look like for the everyday, regular person? So I really just started it as a blog, and then it's just slowly been growing. I do study groups usually on Thursdays where I just invite people, come learn with me. We can have discourse, respectful discourse always. And really just try to figure out what does it look like and in the 21st century. So that's a little bit about me.
There it is. And so we'll jump right into the questions.
Okay.
And I think everyone should be edified by this conversation. I think it's long overdue. I think you would agree one of the most polarizing spiritual traditions in our community is the comedic tradition. So I think that this is something that a lot of our people will be able to learn from and take away some good content and education.
I hope so.
At least that's the hope. So my first question is, were you always a comedic practitioner? And if not, what drew you into the tradition?
Woo, how long do we have?
As long as you want.
You might regret those words, and the audience might regret those words too. So as I said, I'm a teacher by trade, and sometimes I find myself being a little long-winded. So I'm gonna try to stay on point today and not go too far off course. So I want to say one of the earliest memories that I had was we had gotten a computer for the first time, and they were all, you had the floppy disk and you turn it and it goes back and forth, this, that, and third. And the one game that I used to love was a game that was based on ancient Kemet. So that when my mom was at work and her coworkers would go on vacations, and then they would bring me like papyrus coloring books. So it's, it's always kind of been in the background, generally speaking, but religiously, I did grow up Christian. I grew up specifically Lutheran, and then when my parents divorced, we went to a Baptist church. But again, religion has always just been something that I found thoroughly interesting. I love the social sciences, religion, history, sociology. You'll hear me talk a lot about that in general. So, and just kind of like the layers of all of that. So, I was the person in catechism class, like, when you're in catechism, I think you're like 12 or something. And I'm sitting there reading the book and I'm asking all these questions, and all the other kids are like, when are we getting pizza? Like, I was that weirdo kid. Like, I really wanted to understand. Like, I remember asking the minister, did Adam and Eve have dinosaurs as pets? Or were Adam and Eve cavemen and cavewomen? Like, that was me, because like in general, I'm very Virgo by nature, so I need to make logic out of it. And clearly, I did not get those answers. Um, so that being my background, I did work for a church. I was a youth minister at one point, so on and so forth. So that's my religious background. When I got into college, I never forget it. When I was originally a history major, and I totally changed to African American, and Caribbean studies because I had learned for the first time that there were actual laws, so AKA the Black codes, the slave codes, and so on and so forth. I had learned about it for the first time, and I was mad because I was like, why did I have to come to college to learn this? If I never came to college, like, what? I need to, and that's what really kind of pushed me to want to become a teacher. Like, I need to share this from the mountaintops, kind of a thing. So as I had joined that department, I had met many different people. And some of the people who I became friendly with were going through the Sacred Woman program. And that was when I kind of got introduced to the idea of, wow, this is something people are actually living, not just appreciating it. Like, they're actually trying to, follow these things that I've kind of had going in the background in my mind for a long time. So at that time, while I was in college, my ex and I were together, and, we did the whole, will you marry me? Oh my God, yes, kind of a thing. And clearly that didn't end up working out. But as we were looking to get married, we had gone to a church, and the minister there said, if it's important enough for you to get married in a church, you should have a home place of worship. And when he said that, it just, something clicked in my mind where I said, you know what, that is true. If this life-changing event, if I want to do this, I want to do it where it carries over into my everyday life. So with that, we were following Ray Hagans at the time. We were really into like Phil Valentine. So from Sacred Woman, it kind of kept going. My ex, he grew up Christian. He was a Jehovah's Witness. And so we were like in this journey together, like, let's figure it out together. We're going to get married. What do we want our foundation to be? And lo and behold, I found a MySpace post, and I found the Temple of Anu. And we had literally gone. They have services every other week. So we had to wait. But we went a week after, and it was just a wrap, like between the drumming, between like just the message. It was like, this is it. And from there, initiated. And now what are we, 12, 13 years later? So yeah, I'm like, there's a reason why I can't remember how long. I will get into that in a moment. But it definitely was the space for me where I really saw people working towards living in Ma'at and upholding that as a standard. And sometimes people, oh my gosh, how could you do that and convert and blah blah blah. And I know a lot of other people, they won't use that language of converting. I do. Like, I take it very, very seriously. I take the Neteru very seriously. I take what the ancient Kemetiu, what they built as a society, what they built as an economy, what they built as a religion. Like, all of it. And that's my belief, that as a comedic person, you're not cherry picking. You are looking at the entire society and trying to move in that direction. So I just take it very, very seriously. And some people say, oh my gosh, like, why would you ever leave? I've been told so many times, oh, you're going to hell. And I'm like, well, it's a good thing I don't believe in that. Like, I don't know why you feel the need to save my soul. Shouldn't you be worrying about yours? Well, okay, I'm going to spice back. Let me pull back. But, I get it. I get it because I grew up a Christian. So I get that whole mindset of, we got to save you. We have to convert you. We have to show you you're wrong and you're going to burn in hellfire. And I'm like, well, if I don't believe and subscribe to that, then you're not really threatening me with much. And it's been well documented that, through different various conversion attempts over the years, that outright lies and fear tactics were constantly used. So if that's in your history, no, thank you. Right. So, but by becoming a comedic person, to just kind of finish up on that question, by becoming and converting into a practitioner, I really learned for the first time how to pray. And I had to explain that to my mom, because my mom's like, well, what do you mean? You knew how to pray. You've been doing it since ever. I'm like, no. Like, there is praying, please do this for me. Please give me the strength. Please, like, always going outside of yourself and asking and petitioning for something. And as a Chemite, I learned that that's not what prayer is. That's not what spirituality is. That's not what religion is. Like, that's not its function. And I think, especially for people who are like looking at Kemet to you in general, like modern day Kemet to you, they don't see that. They don't see that part because it's much, much different. Like, there's that assumption like, oh, well, you pray, it's just like mine. And it's not. It's very different. And to me, that is when I felt listened to. I felt heard. I felt understood. I remember one time my older brother told me, he was like, when you talking to the next room, you gotta talk to them like they your best friend. You got to talk to them like maybe there's somebody you're dating. You want to court them. You, not to necessarily say like you literally want to date, not literally here, but it's this idea of, I want to look nice. I want to, because it is like, we are all reflections. So if I'm willing to dress and gussy up for a human being, why wouldn't I do it for the divine, and therefore the divine in me? Like, why wouldn't I cultivate that relationship and be like, oh, literally. And I see why I said I could be long-winded, you see. Look.
No, hey, this your show. Keep going.
But I'm telling you, 2 weeks ago, I was on my way home after running errands. And this, I just heard like this, like a really, really low sound. And I couldn't figure out what, because it sounded like a car horn, but it sounded like it was blocks away. And I'm turning the corner, and then I noticed this really aggressive driver behind me. And it was a gentleman, and I used that respectfully, where he stopped in the middle of the road, and he was like, you effing B, F you, learn how to drive, and he was having he was in a tizzy, and I'm just sitting there, calm, cool, collected, like, yes, sir, no, sir, oh, like, and he threw something at my car and everything, and it's just like, that is what this is about. When somebody else is going through it and this, that, and third, you can help give them that calm, but you are calm. You are the calm. You don't have to, oh, please give me strength. Oh, please, because you're constantly on your square. You're constantly on your dean where, no, I'm going to light these candles. I'm going to say my prayers. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to listen to my music. I'm going to do what I need to do. Because so long as I'm within my art, doing what is required of me, what is divinely told, you know what? You shouldn't be a man or woman of anger. Well, then now I'm not going to respond to this person pulling in the middle of the street. And if I'm constantly reciting this to myself, I will not lay to waste the plowed lands. So now I'm not going to waste my time. I'm not going to waste what my ancestors put here for me. I'm not going to operate that way because I'm constantly focused on what I need to do. Always.
And would you say that's the difference, if you will, between thou shalt not and I will not?
Oh, I think it's somewhat relative because sometimes, and I'm not a big fan of fake it till you make it, but sometimes we have very human times and people want to push us. So I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't do that. I'm not going to do it. I will not, like it's taking us. It's a process.
Okay.
Yes, it's a full process because this existence right here is a doozy. Like that's why, like I had a conversation with my coworker, and we were just talking in general, and I said, that is from that conversation, I had this thought, and I said, the ancestors, when we think about when we think of our mythology and we think of when you pass away and you take 40 days and then you go before judgment and you weigh your heart against that feather. And that to me is what is so, so different about being comedic, where I don't have to be perfect. I don't necessarily have to ask for forgiveness, but I am in constant control of my reality and I don't have to be perfect. Whereas, in the United States, we have this culture of it has to be perfect. It has to. No, I need to be my art. I need to be balanced. Like the ancient Kemetu understood, like there is no perfection, even the Necharu, even, the divine natures, they had their negative and then they had their redemption. Right. But it's all about balance it out. So I don't have to be worried about, let's say, people, oh, you got to prove it. You got to prove, that this is real or not. All right. If we don't get stuck up into all of that, because I don't know why you need to have proof for everything. Like that sounds like some commitment issues, but whatever. I'm just saying, like, if you really, really think about it, let's say after all of this, there is nothing. Let's put it out there. But at least I know I lived a decent life. I didn't have to worry about, like, if I'm on my deathbed, and this is part of, like, I know we're going to get more into it, but if I'm on my deathbed, like, this is something I think about, and people, oh, why are you so, like, you're being so morbid? Like, no, the average human lives a finite amount of time. I have a finite amount of time here. So if I think about the end, and we do this in teaching a lot, where we talk about backwards by design. If I think about my end goal, I could plot my way there much easier than just kind of haphazardly going through it. So if I'm thinking about, well, when I'm on my deathbed, who do I want there? What do I want to be thinking about? What do I not want to regret? That's much different. And that's what the ancient Kemetu did. They constantly were preparing for what comes after this. But in the meantime, in that preparation, at least I'm living decently now. Because I'm thinking about, ooh, I don't want my heart. You might try to get my heart heavier than that feather today. Not going to do it. It constantly keeps you in check and on point. And that's vastly different than having to be right, having to save others, having to, like, you're focused on the wrong stuff. That's not it.
And that's heavy. I mean, because it's a heavy responsibility to carry, knowing that I have to be responsible for my actions at all time. There is no, I can get this, I can square this away later. I gotta be accountable for it right now, as opposed to, maybe I can square it. I can do something out of place and square it away later if I talk to somebody else or whatever. I gotta square it up with myself.
Yeah.
So
and square it up with, depending on if other people are involved, sometimes you're gonna have to square it up with other people. Like,
Exactly.
and oh gosh, I don't want to get too far off, but like a heavy part of this past retrograde has been like talking about and thinking about relationships, and something that came to me like just thinking about it, I said everybody want to talk about forgiveness when they're the one who do wrong, but when other people do wrong we don't want to forgive, we don't want to listen, we don't want to understand. And and again, that's part of the 42. I will not close my ears to truth. We don't want to hear it. We're all in our ego. We're in our humanness. But sometimes we are the villain in somebody else's story, and we need to just be okay with, I'm not perfect, but if I aim for my eye and I'm constantly on my eye, then I'll be good because I won't have to hurt that person. That person won't have to be mad at me, and then when they're with their next partner, take it out on them, and then they have a kid together, and now they both mad at each other because of something I did.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? This idea of my aunt, like people, oh, truth and justice and blah, 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 like, and want to blow smoke. Like, it's a very serious thing. Just like gravity, if I jump out that window, I am going to fall because those are the rules of the universe. If we understand the rules of the universe or the rules of engagement, we don't have to go through some of the crazy stuff we put ourselves through. Like, we really, really don't. But unfortunately, people would rather be right and be worried about, burning for eternity and all these other things where it's like, if I'm living Ma'at, I don't even gotta worry about that. I
Yeah,
don't gotta worry about it. It's not even a thing.
there you go. So we're gonna move to the second question.
Okay.
How has being a comedic practitioner impacted your life? And I know you touched on it a little bit or a lot, sure, but elaborate with regards to socially, from a family standpoint, professionally, and even economically.
Okay. So I tried very hard not to be long-winded. I'm gonna try even harder this time.
Again, take all the time you need to get out what you need to get out. It's your show.
I'm gonna go for it though. So, story time, as they say on TikTok, story time. So, so I had already mentioned about like how I was getting engaged, or I was engaged, and this, that, and the third, and we had joined the temple, but I was still brand new, and with the internet and I know a lot of people think like that when we study, when we take classes, like, oh, I'm an expert now. Like, you're really not. It takes time. Like, a kindergartner goes to school for 1 year. They're not a master. We go to school for 12 years. A lot of people aren't masters. People go to college, people get masters, PhDs, people go all the way up to 90 and we still don't master it. Like, just in general. So it takes time and it takes consistent effort. So at that time when we had gotten engaged and we started this whole initiation process, um, I liked to, like, looking back, I'm like, oh, that was so cute. I really thought I had it all figured out, just like we all do. Like, we look back at being 16, like, oh man, what was I thinking? Like, that was not it. So we had gone through a horrible breakup. I cannot capital, bold, underline, make it red, font 25. Like, it was horrible. It was bad. And we both had our part to play in that, as any relationship does. And I can definitely say that with a smile on my face now. But back then, I took the classes, but I hadn't started living as a comedic person. I hadn't really truly transformed myself. So what did I do? I drank, and then I drank some more. I drank. So as I said, I'm a teacher. I would be at the bar by 3:05. I would be going to a friend's house, drinking. Like, I mean, I drank so much. I literally cannot remember from 2010 until I want to say 2012, 2013. Like,
Wow.
I drank that much. I was drinking and driving. Like, my mom was very, very worried about me. I just was off the hook. Like, I was in my terms, I was off the hook. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I just can't deal with this. I can't do this. I don't know how to do this, like, kind of a thing. And then I also remember thinking, like, but you can't do this forever. Like, you can't keep doing this forever. And a big piece of everything falling apart, and like, it wasn't just the horrible breakup, but the beginning of the end, because when things crash and burn, there's that little turning point. I had, in 2009, right before Halloween, and we were supposed to get married originally on November 1st. So it was literally the weekend I was supposed to be getting married. And we had already put off the wedding for another year because we weren't ready or whatever. And I got out of bed at 3:00 in the morning and I fell out. And I had to go to the hospital, and I ended up having to have emergency surgery. And part of that, with my ex, and I remember telling him, like, yeah, go home, feed the cat, feed the dog, whatever, and then come back. And then he didn't come back. And I remember going into surgery thinking, because doctors, oh, if you don't do this, you're gonna die. And they were freaking me out. So I'm like, I'm supposed to be marrying this man, and he's not even here. He went to work.
Mm.
He didn't even come. So, like,
Wow.
it was like, and granted, we since have figured out miscommunication, something, and blah, blah, blah. But, immaturity, whatever. Things went south from there. And so a lot of it was this idea of, like, I could have died. I'm not loved. Like, it was a lot of stuff going on. And so again, rather than dealing with it, I drank it away. So it was my way of running away. It was my immature response to conflict. Like, I just was not equipped with the tools to figure out this challenge in my life. And I want to say, when it got to that 2012, 2013 point, when because I had the surgery, I couldn't drink anymore. Like, it physically hurt. Like, I still can't drink to this day. Like, it physically hurts. Like, I could feel it all in my liver, and it radiates. It's bad. So again, like, between it happening, like, nope, you're not getting married. Nope, you can't drink no more. Like, I just feel like all of that lined up, and it's like, okay, well, you can't use that horrible coping mechanism anymore. You got to figure this out. So then that's when I finally started living as a comedic person. Like, that's when I'm like, nope, you know what? Let me set up this altar. Like, I know they tell us we're supposed to be doing breathing exercises. I know we supposed to be doing journaling. We're supposed to be, petitioning the Neteru as far as, like, show me what I need to do, and da-da-da-da-da. Like, so it just, all the dominoes just started going, where I'm like, oh. And it's like, anytime now I feel like something's off, I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. What am I not doing? What am I like? Let me go back to my toolbox. And I try to tell this to, not necessarily the religious part, but I tell my students, because I teach like finance and things like that. I says, you know what? If you want to think about your money, you got to think about this. You got to keep your mind right. Because when your mind's not right, you're going to spend money. If you broke up with somebody, now you going and buying flashy things, that's costing money. If you sad and depressed, you buying ice cream, that's causing you money. If you buying things, you got to get this together. So if it wasn't for being comedic, if it wasn't for this legacy, my friend, my best friend, she would talk, because when you first go through the breakup and then the anniversary, and then I would take out the ring and look at the ring because I would be in self-loathing for a minute. And I was like, oh my God, and all that. And she's just like, well, if y'all were still together, you'd be either drunk or dead. So what are you sad about? And see, that's some best friend stuff. Your best friend can only talk to you and make you feel this big, but be like, you're right. Be all in your feelings.
Yeah. They can keep it real with you.
All the time. So, but it's true. Like, I really feel like if I didn't have that click and have something to go to help me get through it, and like I've met so many other people who be going through it and have nothing to grasp on. They have nothing. So then they keep on with that negative trajectory. So I mean, that's just me personally, how being comedic has helped me. In general, socially, I want to say, like I'm going to be super girly for 2 seconds. So in the movie The Notebook, which no lie is one of the only movies that like every time I'll be like, oh my God, that in The Color Purple. And it's right at the end. And in there, and this blew my mind when he said it, because I never think about it, in general. But the character says, like, I'm not a great person. I didn't cure any big things. And in 1,000 years, no one's going to remember me. But I remember this moment. So when I think of stuff like that, in the grander scheme of society, I mean, I do my best to impart knowledge to help other people, live in my art, and all of that. But when it comes to society, I feel like being a comedic person helps me understand other people. It helps me actually be able to be helpful. It helps me to be able to understand that, you know what, that person must have been going through it to feel like they had to stop the car and cuss me out. They must have been having a bad day. Or maybe maybe they just found out they got cheated on. Maybe they just found out they owe the government money, and me being slow just set them off. So why create more isfet or chaos in the world when I understand how I can fit and maneuver in it and not add to that, negativity. I think with my family, ooh, I think I'm like, this is the one where I'm like, how much should I say? Because I do know I mentioned it to my parents that they should watch. So I'm just like, ooh.
Yeah, don't go too far. Don't go
Yeah.
too far.
So, but even still, because I think it's a delicate balance of, you got to keep it real. You got to say what's going on, because a lot of people go through a lot of the same stuff.
That's true.
And my aunt, who lives out in Chicago, and she always would tell, like, you think our family is with you need to get out there and see some of these other families, type of things. So in general, I think by being a comedic woman, I understand that my parents are living ancestors. They're just like myself. They're here for a finite amount of time. And they have gone through, without saying specifically, but they have gone through some treacherous things that no person should have to go through. From a young age to from when they were older, and so on and so forth. Like, they've gone through stuff. And by not just studying the mythology, but by learning myself more, I can understand where they're coming from. So we can have a better relationship because now I can understand them, and I'm open enough to understand them. So we often do that. We look at our parents as these perfect people, and when we're young, and then we get older and we get resentful because they don't do these things that we want them to do, and it's like, but they're not mind readers. But you don't know that until you're like 30 or 40, where you're a parent or in front of a whole bunch of kids every day, and just be like, they're not perfect. And them trying their best, even though to us sometimes it may not feel like, you could have did this, you could have did that, why didn't you know, kind of a thing. It helps me take it easy on them. It helps me honor them and honor their experience and honor and respect them, because at the end of the day, they did try their best. It's not their fault other people did stuff to them. It's not their fault that certain conditions in this society put them in a certain place. It's not their fault. Now, does this mean that all is, like that's just your get out of the do-ot type of a thing? No. But it really, really helps me to understand, to know these are the battles I need to take. These are the battles I don't need to take, because that's not them. That's their trauma response speaking. That's not them. That's my grandparents speaking and reacting to this situation. That's their trigger because they went through X, Y, and Z. So by understanding, and even still, if it's not just family, and we think even bigger, like back to society, if we study ancient Kemet and we look at the day-to-day life, how people dealt with stuff, if we look at the Nasuts, if we look at the different stories from back then, I mean, history, and we know this, history repeats itself over and over and over and over again. So what happened back then happens now, and what happens now happened back then. There's nothing new. We know this already. But we're fortunate enough to have, this group of people who literally wrote almost everything down. So we don't have to try to figure it out. And if we get lost with the 42, like somehow we can't try to follow it, we can look at our ancestors, we can look at our own family members and be like, ooh, okay, I get it. So that we don't repeat it. So that we can actually live a better life, because we got to one up. Instead of just sitting here, please let this work out for me. Please, and not to say that, because other systems, it works for them and that's cool. But it's kind of like having the answers to the test in a way, or like a supreme study sheet for the exam versus, well, I took these notes, hope I do well. And that's it.
That's a good analogy.
Like it really does, because you could read the literature, you can read economic records, because that now I'm getting ready to get into economics. Like if you truly study, like not, and I'm like, now I'm thinking back. There's certain literature that maybe is not as helpful. But if you study even Egyptology, and I know some people are like, oh my gosh, that's white people stuff, blah, 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 blah. Right. But they have been writing stuff down since the 17 and 1800s. Like, even if you don't read, like we go to school, we don't absorb everything, but we still learn something. So come on.
And real quick, people think because it's Egyptology and you're coming from an African-centered view and they're European, that you're supposed to summarily dismiss it because it's from Europeans.
Yes.
And that's not how the world works.
No.
Go ahead.
Absolutely not. And that's like saying, well, you know what, like the kids, oh my gosh, I talk about my kids all the time. And I have this one student like, why are we even in school? We don't even use this. We're never going to use this, blah, 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 blah. I said, I don't know about you. I like to cook. And when I cook, I use algebra because I don't always use a recipe. X plus Y equals my good food. So like, don't do that. I love to travel. So I gotta piece out that budget. I gotta do all that. All of that's algebra. I want to put together IKEA furniture. I wanted this. Even when it comes to basic science. Everybody's like, I ain't even gonna touch it, but I'm gonna just bloop and run away from it. Like, with this whole COVID thing, and it's like, but so many people are all over the place because we didn't even understand basic biology and chemistry from school. Like some of this, and again, it's not a full-blown commentary or nothing, but it's this idea that if you know the basics, you don't have to rely on other people. Or even when some of the kids be like, oh, well, I'm going to just be rich. And I was listening to, what's that guy's name? Oh, gosh. He's the guy from off of Shark Tank. I can't remember his name right now. And he was like, everybody wants to say you don't have to go to college, but it behooves you, if you are a true business person, to know at least a little something, because then one, you may not necessarily have to pay someone for a month's worth of work. Maybe you only got to pay them for a week, and now that's money back in my pocket. Or it makes it so that person can't take advantage of you. So it behooves you to at least take maybe a class here, a class there, a webinar, do something, get the education. Even if you don't get the degree, you get the education, right, so that you can go ahead with it. So I'm going to use that to do my little segue into just professionally and economically. So I feel like just in general, when it comes to economics, like one of the reasons that people love chemists so much, it's the pyramids, it's the this, it's the that, but they created an actual living, successful 1,000 years worth of success of a civilization. And you can't do that without resources. You can't do that if you don't have that base. So the more I learn about how they went about their economics, also informs me of, okay, I don't need to just save money. Because like I grew up in a family where, frugality was like the name of the day, week, month, year, everything. So I know how to do that. I know how, and unfortunately I learned it way later. I wish I would have learned it earlier in life. Just more about investing and so on and so forth. And this kind of also goes back to family, where I'm in a place where, my mom is 75. She's totally independent now, and I want her to be as independent as she can for the longest amount of time. But at least I'm in a position now economically where, okay, if I want to get a couple, 2-3 family house to make sure that I could take care of her, if I want to make sure that like the phone bill is paid and so on and so forth, because my mom is like, I swear, she's one of the most proudest people I know. It's one of the, I'm like, oh, why you gotta have so much pride? Like, I'm your daughter. And she's like, you can't trust nobody. And I'm like, Ma, seriously? Like, nobody. Like, she'll tell you in your soul, like, nobody. Like,
I can relate to your mother. That's all I say. I can relate to her.
So she's that way. She's very, very independent. But she's always told me, oh, if I get old, just put me in a home. And I'm like, I have to, like, I just,
that's a big no.
Yes.
My mother just told me that the other day, and I was like, nah, I don't think so.
Absolutely not. Especially now I want to say most, that's an overgeneralization, but so many people who passed away during COVID because they was in a place like that. Like, right. No, I'm good. I am good. We are not going to do that. So making sure that, like, I remember there was a time when, and my mom grew up poor. Like, she always tells this story about how her grade school teacher bought her shoes because she had holes in her shoes. Like, my grandmother passed away during childbirth with my mother. So it was my grandfather and then 5 daughters. And that's when they moved from down south to up here to New Jersey to live with, extended family and so on and so forth, because he was trying to keep the family together. And my grandfather only had a 7th grade education. So he was predominantly, just out trying to work and provide. And, but she just didn't have it. So she lives in that kind of mentality of save it, you may need it, don't throw it away, never throw anything away. So it's just like, I told her, like, and this isn't to like say too much business, but my mother retired on a certain economic level, and I am already double what she retired on. And I feel very blessed that I can take care of her. And even though she fights me about it, it's this idea that you provided for me for my whole life. And if I can't give that to you, what you've poured into me, then something is wrong. And I will continue to grind. And I hate using that word. I take that back. Because when we grind gears, that's a bad thing, and we replace gears. So I'm not going to say that. When I work hard and diligently to make sure and provide for my family and provide for my friends if they need it, or provide for my temple for home or whatever it is. Like, I mean, I remember I've had students that be like, after they graduate and be like, Miss, I need such and such. And then I was fortunate enough to be in a place to be like, all right, here, put some gas in your tank. Okay, go buy you some food. I've had kids like that because, respectfully, of where I work, it's an urban area. So the kids, sometimes they need. And so you buy them food, you buy them clothes, you treat them to things that maybe they don't necessarily always have. And it's like, so when I think about being a comedic person, socially, just professionally, economically, like, I have to make sure I'm on that level, because that to me is my art. Like, you don't lead, like in the Hosea, it even has stories about, like, you don't turn your back on the widow, you don't turn your back on the orphan, you don't turn your back on the elderly. Like, you just don't do that.
Right.
So there's my long answer.
That's all right. That's all right. Yeah, we have a sister here in St. Louis, Queen Mother Indy Teray. I said Akua Kitty Uru, and she has the same mentality that you have. She a social worker,
Mm-hmm.
so she helping people in that aspect, and then she has her own organization where she helps kids, and so it's a constant giving back that I see you doing with your, and it's the same way with our family. So I see you doing it with your family, with the kids you impacting, with your friends, with your overall community, and it's the same thing she doing. So obviously, this is something that is ingrained in the comedic philosophy. Uh, I think, or at least I'm seeing. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that that's something that people should pay attention to, because I think people just think, y'all lighting candles and sitting at altars and trying to tell people about ancient Kemet and not doing nothing else. You understand what I'm saying? So it's a lot deeper than that.
Yeah. Yeah. And if anybody does see anybody doing just that and that's it, holla at me, because that's not it.
Right.
That's
Right.
not it at all. Like, and I think that's unfortunate. I think like, I'm not even sure where that impression comes from. Like, that's like saying, like, I've been to Congress before, all that other stuff went down. And I took the kids down there. We went on a trip. We got to, kind of see how it works. But it's like, I could say whatever I want about those folks down there. I could have whatever opinion or non-opinion, whatever. But I don't know what they do day to day. That's like even as a teacher, oh, y'all got summers off. Oh, y'all this. Oh, y'all that. Step in the classroom. Step in the classroom. See how lazy we are. See, if I came to your job, if I came to anybody else's job, no, we're not going to understand, because I'm not in that place to really understand the inner workings and the nuance and the context. So if you are outsider looking in or you're a voyeur, of course you're going to get a certain impression. And especially if you don't ask questions. And when I say ask questions, specifically questions because you genuinely are curious or want to know or understand, because I find a lot of people ask questions so they can get a aha or a gotcha, or, again, back to that ego, or if I trip you up, I can convert you back, or I could show you wrong. And like, if that's how you're moving, or if that's how you're thinking, like that's in a whole nother bucket. Like you're not really curious. And that's been my experience, where there are people asking questions, but they don't have any desire to actually live anything that I'm trying to talk about at all. So why are you asking questions to make a point? Because you want to feed your ego. You want to be an agent of APEP. You want to feed I was going to say the wrong word. You want to feed is facts. Oh golly, I swear sometimes my vocabulary be getting all turned up.
That's all right. That's all right. We're gonna go to question number 3.
All right.
In recent dialogues with Abrahamic faith adherents, I found that there's a notion that the comedic tradition is said to be either irrelevant or just another false doctrine. In your opinion, should we give any credence to such statements by responding?
Okay, I'm ready.
Take your time.
This is such an interesting question to me. And again, because all the little gears go in my mind. When I first read that question, I was like, why would someone even take the time to say something like that? Like I couldn't get it. I didn't understand at first. And so as I normally do, if I don't fully understand, I'm like a queen of Google and the dictionary. And I tell my kids do that all the time. If you don't understand, don't just say no because you don't know what it is. Go find out what it is. So the first thing that I looked at, irrelevant, meaning not relevant, inapplicable. Okay, inapplicable. I'm going to take that. I'm going to put that right there real quick. Then I'm going to put, well, if it's not relevant, what does relevant mean? So, and I'm like, I'm looking at my nose right now too. Like, ooh, ooh, ooh. So having significant and demonstrable bearing on a matter at hand, affording evidence tending to prove or disprove a matter or issue, having social relevance. That's interesting. That's real interesting to me, because respect to the Abrahamic folk, all power to whatever it is they trying to do.
Right.
But like, you know what? Why don't we just start talking about the water shortage in Australia? Like, that's how I hear that question, because it's like, you don't live there, you don't, and not to say you can't care about stuff, but why? So
right.
like, what the questions I always ask is, well, what is some whatever it is I'm talking about, whatever's function, and why is that important? So why is it important to know if something is relevant or irrelevant for an Abrahamic person? That's interesting, unless you're just trying to convert me, because that's part of your faith. Going out, converting people, going out and doing mission work and all of that. So, like, that's part of your canon. That's part of your doctrine and your dogma. So for you to say, oh, that's irrelevant, that's false. Oh, wait, I didn't even get to false yet. I'm just on irrelevant. For you to say it's irrelevant, that means you trying to get in here to try to convince me of something else. Why? What would be the function of that? Why are you trying to have this conversation with me? Unless it's to win me back to your side, which respectfully, that's been the MO. And if it's some of the other Abrahamic faiths, it's kind of like punch, stab, stab is the MO.
Right.
Talk about all of them. So to go ahead with this idea of relevancy or even truth. Again, as I said before, the ancient Kemet to you were about Ma'at. So yes, truth is part of that, but it's about that balance. Not this one's better than that one and da 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 da. Like that's some weird social. So I don't know what you're doing with that. That's not how we look at things, because we look at things at a holistic level. As I said with the last question, like my money is connected to my kids at work. It's connected to my mom. It's connected to my morals and my prayer. Everything is interconnected. So this idea of there is this truth and blah, blah, like in concrete, and that to me is so very foreign, because I am Menyet the daughter. I am Menyet when I am girlfriend. I'm Menyet the teacher. I am Menyet the friend. I am all one person. And I show up differently in these different relationships, but they're all interrelated into me and who I am. It's not, this is the true version of Menyet and she shows up like this in every single situation. Like, what? That's not even realistic. That's not real life. Like nobody operates like that. Let me go back to go forward. If you are, I want to make sure I'm using the right word, a sociopath, or like like when somebody has something wrong with them and they do show up with that robotic and way of doing things.
Right. Step life or something.
Yes. So it's like, why would we approach everyday living, spirituality, religion, social constructs, and why would we that there's only one way? There is no one way. I tell that to the kids all the time. They be, well, how do you want me to do it? However you want to do it. Just get it done. You could do it standing on your head. You could do it sleeping. You could do it at 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't care. Get it done. That's what's important. Like a driver's license. It don't matter how many times you take it, just do it. But, like if we went through everyday life like that, then, like that whole approach to what they're even saying about Kemetiu is very just off-putting in general. I think the other thing I wanted, because I love, because I also teach like AP. So you got to do a lot of critical thinking skills in there. And we talk a lot about logical fallacies because the kids have to write like different essays and so on and so forth. So for the whole year, banging in their head, like you got to stay away from logical fallacies because it undermines whatever it is you're trying to talk about. So to say that something is a false doctrine, to say something is not relevant, that's very hasty, especially when you don't know anybody who actually practices this. You are just saying, you're being a voyeur, looking in somebody's window, being like, oh, all they do is put on candles. Come on back to, whatever our faith is. Like, okay. Like that, it's so illogical to me. And it's such a generalization because you clearly don't, people say they do research, but I'm trying very hard not to say some not nice things, but just watching a couple of lectures on something and reading a book or two is not research. Like people spend years out of their life researching and running. Like did you go through the scientific method? Did you go through the sociological method to try to figure this out? Or did you I read a book and I heard a song and that's convincing and that's enough for me? Like, that's not education. And we have this conversation within our community about how we've been miseducated. Like 74% of the United States has a 6th grade reading level. So when people tell me I've studied, like, have you? And what have you read? Have you read a bunch of Google articles, or have you read actual, like, I'm trying to say it without saying stuff, but have you read actual scholarly level study things like of that level, because it's a vast difference. It's a vast, vast difference. Or have you read stuff that feeds your own ego? Have you read stuff that makes you feel ushy gushy and comfortable? Because that's what a lot of people do. And it's like, it's not research. That's not enough. So I guess just to kind of move forward, the genetic fallacy. So this idea that the conclusion is based on what this person says. So if they're saying, well, it's irrelevant because, and they lay out their own argument, that's like a lawyer. The lawyer's not going to tell you the whole picture. They're going to tell you what they want to tell you to get you to think what they want to think. They want you to think so that you could get their client off. So what are we really talking about here? And then they beg the claim that like, oh, well, you got to prove me wrong. Like, how do you it's faith. It's ancient history. Like I said, Egyptologists been studying this since 17 and 1800s, and they're still coming up with new stuff. And you think because you read a book once that you magically going to come up with more than what they've been doing for hundreds of years? Come on, beloved. Like, so when you telling me, oh, it's not applicable, like, I question why you're even saying this to me. What's your motive? What's your MO?
Yeah, before we went live, I was talking to you about a brother who said he studied the comedic tradition for a year.
I feel bad. I kind of feel like I just stepped up. I apologize if you're watching. Like, I was just talking.
No. You like I say, it's your show. You have carte blanche, my casa, su casa. So we were talking about a brother who said he studied the comedic tradition for a year, and he read a lot of Menyet Ankh and watched a lot of Astra Kwesi and stuff like that. So, like, and because of that, he formed a particular opinion. And I don't think he's ever met an individual like yourself who is a practitioner. And so I just feel like people form these opinions of practitioners based on information that's not from practitioners. And so talk about that for a second, and how that's kind of, it's off base for so many reasons.
First, all respect to the elder, because as I said, I will not lay to waste the plowed lands, as the 42 says. So he has definitely contributed.
Real quick, I just everybody, I got a bomb sound effect, but it's disabled right now, and I haven't been able to get it back up. Otherwise, I would have dropped about 80 bombs. So for those who wondering why I haven't, that's why. But go ahead, Queen.
I'm like, we gonna do like a what do you call a mime version, like
there you go.
But I definitely want to start out with that, because I do believe that just overall, when people have commentary or critique of the not ancestors, of the elders, that sometimes it can be very disrespectful. And I get, truth is truth and but like that's not how we move. That's So even though I have my critique of Menyet Ankh, and my opinion of Menyet Ankh, I still will always respect him for what he has done and what he has contributed, whether I agree with it or not. Additionally, he does have 2 books that I actually am like, yes, okay. But the rest of his books, for me personally, are very, very mixed and amalgamated. And I know I catch heat for it a lot. I'm very used to it. I am not a fan of amalgamation. I am not a fan of mixing and, oh, we all come from Africa. It's all ours anyway. So we could do Hindu stuff and Buddhist stuff and blah, blah, doo, da, da. Like, because there's something as in cultural context. So with Muada Ashby's books, he does a lot of mixing between Hindu stuff. He does a lot of mixing with, I want to say there's some Buddhist stuff in there too. Just for me in my own reading, like when I open a Muada Ashby book, my eyes be going like this because it's just like, sir, okay, like it's just, ooh, I'm not gonna say what I just thought, but it's just a lot. It's a lot. And like I said, there's 2 books of his that I think are, valuable because they definitely are more based on the actual ancient Kemetic things. So one of them is like Egyptian proverbs, and it's great. I would say the only thing about it is he doesn't say where he gets the different proverbs from. Some of them, if you read other like the book of Ptah or Ankh Shashanki or, any of the other ones, you'll be, oh, okay, yeah, that's this. Or if you read like Miriam Litcham, and she has her 3 volumes where you read the different literature, and then in the beginning, she tells you for this time period, these were the features. So, oh, that must be from this time period. So you can make those kinds of connections. Whereas I think of his book more as like a beginner, like, man, I'm going through it. Let me thumb through Proverbs and because again, after those drinking years, the one proverb that he had in Egyptian Proverbs was, as a camel goes through, oh God, I'm always bad at like memorizing stuff, so FYI, but as a camel goes through the desert and thirsts not, so shall the fortitude of a man see him through. And I would always think that to myself because I'm like, oof, like this man just said this just happened. Like I might want to cause violence, but I'm in the desert of my life right now, and I'm not going to thirst because I'm going to stay where I need to be. I'm going to stick the course. I'm going to listen to what the Netru is telling me, because when I don't listen to Netru is telling me, I'm a drunk on the side of the road. And we don't want that. We don't want to be like that no more. Like, who wants to be the drunk on the side of the road? Like, not. So, so as I said, that specific book, cool. There's another one. I just got it. I think it's called Wisdom Text or something, but it has, I forget which scribe it is, but it's the picture of the scribe on the front of the book. But the rest of them, when it says like meditation and yoga and stuff like that, there is that idea that there's truth in everything, that, other people, oh, everything's interrelated, there's correspondence and so on and so forth. That's cool. But is my perspective that as a Kemetic person, I always want to start with Kemet. And then if I can't find it, because people will be like, oh, well, the libraries have disappeared and this and that. So if I read all the primary sources, I read the Purdom Haru, I read the coffin text, I read the literature translated by Miriam Litcham, I go through all of this, that, and the third. I look at the 42 and I still can't find something, then okay. Maybe I could look for correspondences and stuff. But it's like the other way around, where a lot of people start with Hindu and Buddhist and all these other systems and make that the foundation and then sprinkle Kemet on top of it like sprinkles on a cake. And I'm like, but again, it's cultural context. Because I know some people be like, oh, well, your ancestors are from West Africa, your ancestors aren't even from there, like, because there be those out there that say that kind of thing, and that's cool. But I don't necessarily look at that whole thing of like, I have to be blood related to call these people my ancestors. One, because they were such a high civilization on the continent. So if I look at, and this is very much part of that African experience that we call each other brother, sister, cousin, auntie, and we're not blood related. So why are we treating it as though we can't do that with the ancestors too? Like I can only be blood related or regionally related to these groups of ancestors over here, and that's it. When we do it in everyday life, again, it's that idea of like separation and just we don't do that every day. So why would we do it over there? Like it's illogical. In my opinion, but just in general, if that gentleman is watching or maybe possibly later watching, there are, oh my, see y'all. Hold that up real quick. So I say be very careful on your diet. As in, what I've also found is that a lot of people read secondary sources and that be their knowledge base. And it's cool to have some secondary, stuff put in there, because clearly if I read all Egyptology stuff, I'm going to have a certain mindset. So you got to balance it out. We got to do the Ma'at. And, we want to have those secondary sources to help give us cultural context, to help us understand, because a lot of us are coming from other systems, that we're not familiar with, anything African outside of Kente and the little bit of stuff that we experience.
Right.
So I get it. You have to, but if your primary diet is all secondary stuff, that's a problem, because you wouldn't do that in school. You don't do that. That's just educationally, like, you might as well just jump off the cliff now. You're not supposed to do that. So to get to the question says, ask me what my opinion is on comedic yoga. So I feel like y'all are trying to come for my life right now and trying to get me in these comedic streets. Like, y'all is coming for me. It's okay though. So
shout out to my brother Teddy.
Teddy, for the question. So I have, I guess, like a two-prong response to this. So I think comedic yoga in general, because again, I hate yoga, and I'm not saying that as like a funny person. Like, I'm a fake gym rat. So, I mean, I could pick stuff up, I could put it down, I could be on the elliptical machine and all this, that, and third. But when it comes to yoga, it was just like, I would rather just keep lifting. Like, it is not for me. And a couple of years ago, I fractured the bone in my foot, and I was struggling, with my workout routine. So I was like, oh, let me take a yoga class. Like, I wasn't trying to do it. And it was all right. Like, I didn't totally hate it as much as I thought I would, even though I still do. But there is a Sanette that I know, a sister that I know, and she does, her company is called Violet Fire Yoga, and she's out of, I believe, Columbus, Ohio. And I tell you, I took the class with her for the first time, a comedic yoga class. I'd never took one before. And I was like, oh, well, maybe this ain't half bad. So now, respectfully, have I taken a whole bunch of other yoga classes after that? No, I have not. But I definitely could feel a big difference between that and like a regular yoga class at LA Fitness. Like, it was definitely different. Just even, I guess maybe it might have even been her as a teacher, but like the movements, the poses and things like that were just, I don't know, it just felt way more in alignment. Now, that being said, on the other side, the idea of comedic yoga, first of all, and I'm telling y'all, about to get me out here. I'm gonna get in trouble. I'm telling you, I'm gonna get a phone call. So if it is truly comedic yoga, why are we using Hindu terms? I'm just saying. Like, if it was ours from the beginning, shouldn't we just calling it what it is from the
bomb just went off. The bomb just went off.
So, but again, that's the logic of it.
Right.
So I think in general, and this is something that just across the board, there are many things that people label as comedic that are just not. It is what it is. It's a beautiful system. They've done their research and that's cool and whatever. But if we're going by certain stuff, as in like, you know, research and so on and so forth, like, now, does that mean similar concepts didn't exist in ancient Kemet? No, of course, yes. Right. There were ideas of energy centers and this and that, whatever. And I mean, even if we look at just the way we used to bury the ancestors, like we specifically put certain things on certain parts of the body, because when you are traversing into the duat, when you are going into the hereafter, that you know, all of those things kind of protect you along the way. So the concept existed, but it didn't exist like that. That's all. So, I mean, it's kind of like,
real quick. Hey, yeah. Since I don't have my effect, wherever y'all at, drop a bomb for the queen real quick for keeping it a buck. Straight like that. Just drop a bomb in your mind. Go ahead, queen.
So, I think in general, like, you know, when we're little, our parents, oh, Santa Claus and la la la, yada, yada, yada. And then, you know, so we grow up with this idea. And it's like, you know, cute little family memories. And but then we grow up and we're just like, oh my God, my parents lied to me. So, but then we end up doing it with our kids again. And it's the same thing where, you know, some people just have ushy-gushy feelings about certain stuff and certain people or groups, or, you know, we have reverence for these elders because we don't want to lay to waste the plowed lands. But at the same time, we're also continuing the errors. And we're not course correcting. And we don't got to course correct by being like, you wrong, yoga don't exist, you a liar, you lied to everybody. Like, that's what, because that's how people be coming. Like, that really is how people are coming. And it's not that serious. Because if you think about it, like, and somebody had to tell me this, where they were like, think about it. Think about the education from the 50s and the 60s, because the people who are like Muada Ashby and all of them age, and like I remember when I did that the video about the whole I'm like, I don't even want to do it. But from that video, and I said, like, if you look at Sheikh Anta Diop, if you look at Dr. Jeffries, if you look at all these people, they were all born in the 30s. What was going on in the 30s? Could they go to school? Did they have access? Were they really allowed to even learn these things? So that was that generation. Then the next generation, you know, who you know, kind of are our leaders. What was their access? But we gonna be mad at them? This is why, again, that whole idea of like, when you're comedic, you understand this is where the ancestors were. And this is how I could build upon it, instead of just being being mad at the ancestors and angry with the ancestors and the elders because of their lack. Like, beloved, they did their best. Like, you really think Muada Ashby, or I forget the gentleman who came up with comedic yoga, you think they said like, you know what? I want to F up Black people. How can I do that? Oh, man, comedic yoga. Come on. Nobody was doing that. Like, they literally thought they was helping. And unfortunately, some things that were done, and I'm not trying to just harp on the yoga, because there's other groups and other people and so on and so forth out there. But they're doing their best. They really were doing their best, and they just saw it as, we need to do something. And sometimes when you rushing out the burning house, you forget stuff behind, or you are not as prepared as you woulda, coulda, shoulda been. But you know, the house is on fire. We gotta go.
There it is.
That it is what it is. Like, so, I mean, and I know a lot of people are talking about it like that, and I get it, but we need to chill. Like, chill. Like, let's put it in my art here. So I'm like, I think I don't know. Go ahead. What was you gonna say?
No. I was gonna go to the next question, but if you got something else you want to say, go ahead and say it.
I think I didn't even technically finish the question.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. If you got more to add, like I said, it's my casa, su casas. Take as much time as you need.
Okay. So I had other logical fallacies in there, but I ain't gonna go into all of them. But there's other ones. So I think just as we do now, where we're all like, "Oh, that's fake news. That's fake news." Like we really have to analyze again. Like I said, why are these people asking us these questions? Like why are we not testing them? Like we just take their criticism and then go back at them. But do we ever really explore, like, well, what makes you ask? What makes you say that? What gives you that impression? Like people in the dating world, they'll tell you, like, some people just literally sit back and ask questions just so they could figure you out. And here we are giving it all. Why? Why do we even do that? And we don't even, it's like we're engaged in a war, but yet are just willy-nilly out there. So I would definitely encourage us to ask more questions overall, especially when we know that proselytizing and evangelism and mission work, like that's their whole MO. I'm trying to see if I fit. That was the other thing. I remember now. So the idea of if it's the truth. How can I put this? There is no one truth. There is none. There are many sides of the truth. Within in Kemet, we say ma'ati. There are two sides of the truth. Or as in contemporary times, there's your side of the story, there's my side of the story, and then there's whatever meets in the middle. That's the ma'at of it. So when the other groups are saying like, oh, they're irrelevant, they're this, they're that, like, okay, that's your experience. That's maybe what you see, what you've experienced, and that's your experience. What can I really say or do about that? But we have so many people who feed into it out of fear. Like out of the fear of being wrong. And I say that to my kids all the time. They're like, oh, well, I don't know. I don't want to be wrong. So what? I said, have you met me before? I'm wrong all the time. But I learned from it and I moved from it. Like, I'm not going to keep making the same mistakes over and over and over and over again. Or I'm going to try my best not to. Because there are, let's keep it real. Sometimes there are some habits that are difficult to break for folks. But the human condition, we got to try our best to just not fall into that ego trap of I have to be right and you're wrong. I'm good and you're bad. I'm this and you're that. Like when we're actually comedic people, like we understand, like that's my brother, that's my sister. They on some crazy wild stuff right now. I still respect and love you from over here at arm's length distance because you're trying to do me some harm. But if you want to actually have a respectful, adult, mature conversation, I'm here when you're ready to talk, kind of a thing. So, but this idea of knowing, like, how things we thought we knew have changed. And this is happening every day of our lives. So what does it really mean to know something, for something to be true? Because what was true 2 weeks ago, how many times, and I keep bringing up COVID. I'm so sorry. I'm like, I know I'm triggering some people.
No, you good.
First they said, you got to wear one mask. Then you got to wear 2 masks. No, you only got to wear 1 mask. And that was all the truth. It depended on the week.
There it is.
Like, this is my one true love. Then you get a divorce. Like,
Exactly.
I don't think you were lying when you said those vows, but now, stuff changes. So
there it is.
There's one way, this robot way of dealing with life, when that is not what human beings are even alike. Like, we have to be better at analyzing and applying and evaluating, what the conversation is and what we want. Like, what do we really, really want? And I can get it why, the people of the Abrahamic faiths might be going for that. And again, like I said, I'm new to this whole world of apologists and all this other stuff. So, I can only speak on this little bit because I don't even really want to go there. But they have to worry about their numbers. Like if we look at the statistics, the numbers for Black youth, like Gen Z age, they're not going to church. They don't want nothing to do with church. So like it makes sense why, like this time period is having such a rise in people looking towards, traditional faith, toward alternative faith, new age faith, and so on and so forth. So it makes sense why this is the reaction, that they're on full blown let's convert and evangelize mode, because they're losing numbers, point blank period. Like we could even see this with we can even see this with, and I know somebody will be like, oh my God, but it's okay. But with that whole Lil Nas X with the Montero video, when he was going down the pole and all, everybody was losing their mind. And the conversation was all about damning him. But meanwhile, so many people were just like, exactly what your reaction is why you're losing the young people. Because y'all are so quick to damn people. Y'all are so quick to say somebody gonna go to hell. You're so quick to do all this, that, and the third. And that's why they're turning away and leaving. So y'all gotta make us look bad to make them try to come back to you and say that we're irrelevant and we won't help you and we're fake and we're not true. We're liars. Ooh, scary boogeyman. Like we could see it just with that instance where people were just like, yo, I thought we're supposed to be of this faith and we're supposed to love and accept, but because y'all were so hard pressed, that's why he's making this music video twerking on the devil. Because now he don't care about going to hell. It means nothing. That's not, like, I remember there was a gentleman on there that was saying like they're gonna have to do some heavy construction to revamp themselves. And it's interesting because instead of revamping themselves and, changing and moving and molding, they're going back to tried and true methods, which is like, okay, I'm not going to fall for that. Like, I don't think so. And so Faith Among Black Americans, February 16th, 2021. It's a Pew Research study. And it says that younger Black Americans are much less engaged in church as the older generations. And this is starting from mid-millennials all the way to Gen Z. So if you're losing a generation and a half of people, yeah, you're going to attack what they're turning to as an alternative. It makes total sense. And if we understand human beings, because, you want to keep this thing going, we want to keep our money up. We want to keep our churches and our mega churches. And, and then you kick in, well, if you're a good, person of this faith, then you're going to go out there and get them, because that's what we do. So they grip even harder. It's like a bad breakup.
Yeah.
It's like a really bad breakup. And it says the vast majority of religiously unaffiliated Black Americans say they have no particular religion. And even the number of Black atheists has gone up. Like that should really tell you something. And it's just, there's this one quote where it's a woman, Tamara Young, she's 32. She says, the church is oppressive for a lot of Black women, but the other African traditions empower women. And who are most of the people that we see going and flocking and now raising families in these other traditions? But we're not real. We're irrelevant. We don't talk about going to hell. We talk about being the balance. We talk about just be your freaking best. Treat people well. Have other people treat you well. Stand up for yourself. Eat well. Protect your family. Like these are the things that we talk about. But so how is that irrelevant when in a time when we have so much division in this country, where we're kicking people's backs in left and right, up, down, and all over the place? Of course people are going to want an alternative, and then you're going to say, oh, they're liars. Like, it doesn't make sense. And even when we say, when we look at young people and what their needs are and what their wants are, like, young people are, like, when it comes to diversity, when it comes for equality, when it comes, and granted, there are other studies that say, a lot of Gen Zs are becoming much more conservative also. So, it'll be interesting to kind of see how this plays out, because, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So I get it. But, it says the young people want more social programming. They want more community related things. They want to address the ills of the past. They want to have strong social systems, because we have more single women raising kids. So if you look at that, or different systems that damn you for this being where you are in your life, and then you look at being comedic, like, and don't get me wrong, there are some comedic, and I do that on purpose, there are some comedic people out there who will damn and complain and stuff like that, but respect to them, they're also bringing a lot of that Abrahamic stuff with them. Like, you got to get rid of that baggage, you better throw it out, like, that doesn't belong here in this sphere. But again, and again, I'm not trying to say this to be mean, but when you only learn for 1 year, you don't know that. You don't know who's really about it and who's full of nonsense. Because I've literally seen, I could count 5 people just right off the top of my head who will remain nameless, because I'm not going to do that. But they came in the temple, got a name, and now they out there being a priest or priestess with no qualifications. No, they didn't even work through their own stuff. And they out there, I'll do a house cleansing for you. Oh, come follow me and I'll lead you through this program. Come do this, come do that, blah, blah, because everything goes, because it's ripe for the picking. So as new people, as people who are interested, like, you gotta be real careful, because there's so many charlatans out there. And it don't, like, you can literally buy an Ankh off a Wish for 99 cents. It don't take much. You could read a book or two, and because this much more knowledge than the next person, you could get over. And a lot of people are being taken advantage of in the name of comedic people, and by people who are not even comedic, who don't follow the 42. So it's I think when I hear them say these things, they're really talking about that kind of phenomenon, which is something we need to kind of fix in some way, shape, or form. But that's another conversation for another time. And I think that just the last point for this question is this idea of Coochie Chakalia. Like, if we are determining who we are, what we're about, and this is what we stand for, what does it matter if this other group says I'm irrelevant?
Wait a minute, Queen. I need you to do me one favor.
Okay.
You mentioned Coochie Chakalia.
Mm-hmm.
Define that for the audience.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Because I think they need to know exactly what that means. What is Coochie Chakalia?
Okay.
If you would humor me, go ahead.
Humored. Consider yourself humored. So, Coochie Chakalia comes from the Nguzo Saba. It's Kiswahili, but it comes from the holiday of Kwanzaa, and it's one day. But the concept in general is talking about. Well, actually, it's every day. Let me stop lying. But it's this concept of self-determination, to define yourself, name yourself, create for yourself, speak for yourself. So, can't nobody speak for me being a comedic person, because you're not comedic. You're not Menyet. Menyet speaks for Menyet. Like, and I got into that with somebody yesterday on Facebook, and oh, you're like one of those other comedic.
I'm sorry to stop you again. Say that one more time. Who defines Menyet?
Oh, well, technically, Nature and Natural, but Menyet speaks for Menyet. Menyet is responsible for Menyet.
Okay.
And when Menyet gets these phone calls telling me like, oh, you shouldn't have said this, that, that, I'm gonna have to be responsible for it. I'm gonna have to be responsible for it. Like, it's just what it is. So yeah, there's a lot of again, I gotta do my quotes. Comedic people out there who's doing all kinds of nonsense to people. And unfortunately, Menyet's gonna have to be the one to try to make the ma'at, because those people aren't going to make the ma'at because they don't live by ma'at. They like wearing ankhs. They like, talking about hotep, but don't live. They don't live it. They don't try to even live it. I'm not saying that like in no way, but like, I literally went to, oh gosh, I can't remember the church. It's over. I went with my mother because my mother is still Christian, and I go with her from time to time. So we went to this church over in New York. It's a big, famous church that now just for whatever reason I can't remember. And the minister had an ankh earring. It was a Christian man wearing an ankh earring, and
really?
Yes, yes, I kid you not. That's why I'm saying, like, it's not the outfit. Being a Kemite is not the outfit. It is definitely not, because there's a lot of people out here wearing white, and respectfully, there are other African traditions that wear white.
Right.
So you can't even say like, you gotta really, oh, what are they about? It's not about just. Because some people they'll call themselves, and I've met some of them too, where they just make up their names, or they go pay somebody to give them a name. That's not like my name specifically. My name means she who, I want to say derives, she who finds pleasure living in Ma'at, established on earth. Like, that's what my name means. So when I got that name, one, I had to earn it. But two, I have to live into it, because that is my divine charge as a woman, as a comedic woman. Like, I need to be a woman who finds pleasure living in Ma'at.
Drop another mental bomb for the queen for that. Go ahead.
So, like, so much so I'm like, you can't see it, but I'm like, I got Ma'at literally on my back. When I was in that crazy drunk phase, like right in the beginning, I got this tattoo. It took me 2 hours. It's literally, Ma'at has my back at all times. Like, I have to, like, I mean, I got tattoos out the wazoo, but it's like,
do I.
Yep. But, and then people be like, oh my God, you love pain. Like, no, this is a living meditation. Like, this, like, okay. I'm like, oh, you can't see it. I'm like, yeah, you really can't see it.
Yeah,
but
we'll do a separate show about our tattoos.
Yeah, I see why I say getting distracted. But it's just the idea of like, it's that serious that I have to constantly remind myself of who I am and who I say I'm going to be. Because a lot of people want to walk that walk and talk that talk, but then they at home watch Netflix.
Right.
Okay. So Byron Wash says, in the natural state, there isn't really a beef with Abraham Trinity and New Comedic religion. It's more united than disunited, biblically speaking. I'm like,
P is me, by the way.
Oh, I'm like, okay. I'm like, I would have to just accept that, because I'm not sure I quite follow, because again, I'm not.
Right, and you don't have to. I just highlighted that, but you don't have to. You can keep flowing.
All right. So when I said this whole thing about the Kuji Jakalia, and that kind of gets to that what I was kind of getting ready to say, is this idea that if we are comedic people or others or outside people are going to have beefs with us. Like they say, you're successful when you have haters. Like, so it's the same thing. Like, of course you're going to, given what's going on in the country, in the world, blah, 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 blah. Like, of course you're going to have a criticism on me because I'm growing and you're diminishing. So am I going to be worried if I am being proud of who I am, if I'm being okay with walking around and saying, yes, my name is Menyet and I'm, this is what I'm about, and talking to people and so on and so forth? Or am I going to shrivel and shrink? Like, that's what the expectation seems to be. Like, you can have your opinion, that's cool, but that's not what we's doing over here.
No doubt, no doubt. And again, family, please drop a mental bomb for the queen as she is going in. So this is our fourth question.
Okay.
Speaking of said dialogues, meaning the dialogues between me and the brothers and sisters of the Abrahamic faiths,
Mm-hmm.
speaking of said dialogues, to me, there seems to be a conflation between the overall conscious community
Mm-hmm.
and the comedic community. Do
Mm-hmm.
you see the two as one and the same? Why or why not?
Okay. So when I was thinking about this question, my first, as I said, I gotta have definitions. I have to have a starting point. So when I think of the conscious community, when I think of woke folk, if you will, um, I think a lot of like Afrocentrism, nationalism, little conspiracy theories sprinkled in there.
No doubt.
It's a big stew of folks.
It's a wide spectrum.
Yeah, very, 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 very. So it that it's somewhat difficult to answer in that because it's so wide, it's hard to really just pin down, well, what exactly does that mean? Because it's so huge. But my personal opinion is that, as I said before, because, and this is one of those critiques that I have for the comedic community, like, unfortunately, and I know, some people may not agree with me, and that's okay, because Menyet speaks for Menyet, not nobody else. I think that we as a people have brought our trauma from the African American experience into the comedic thing. And whether, you know what I mean, like whether it be practitioner level, whether it just be study level, and a lot of that experience and that trauma that we experience has a lot of anger attached to it. It has a lot of anger attached to it. And that's why, like, to me, it's, you can be a comedic person who is conscious, but to be a conscious comedic person is putting the horse before the cart. Like it doesn't go, because that is where we get messed up, where we are starting to now move in anger because we're moving from the place of, well, and the aliens and they built the pyramids and like, and the government
Right.
is poisoning us and this and that. And we're so concerned with what the US government is doing and this and that, that are we really doing the comedic thing? Or are we just being reactionary? Like, personally, I'm so tired of going into a lot of these groups and saying they're comedic, and all they do is hate on Christians. Like, if that's what it means to be a comedic person, you need to hang it up to dry. Like, you person ever is doing that, because that's not what this is about.
Facts.
It's not about anger. It's about, again, you look to the natural, you look at the 42, and you get yourself in alignment, because why? We're all going to die one day, and you got to get it right. And here are the practical ways for you to actually get it right. Yes, we're still going to live in this country. We're still going to be here. But if you're only consumed with that, that's like that saying of, oh, you drink the poison and expect the other person to die. Like, that's what you're doing.
Right.
Like, it doesn't work like that. And then on top of that, besides just being caught up in those traumas and stuff, that we get, I don't want to say exposed, but we get misled because we're so caught up in that trauma. Like, this is why, and again, to get political for 2 seconds, but this is why Russia, China, and what was that? It starts with a U. I want to say Uzbekistan, and I know that's not right. Ukraine. When they like that, they literally, like, there was, I think it was on Vice, where they tracked a Russian company who went to Ghana and hired Ghanaian people to post pictures and to put out propaganda to get in Black people's head. Like, How do we not see that the game is bigger than just being mad?
Sis, we can't even fathom. It's just like we got people, black people in America, who saying that they are Native Americans. And we have people who have exposed the fact that that's Russian propaganda, but they ignore the evidence. I'm not going to even get into the vaccine propaganda and why that's a white supremacist narrative to keep black people sick. I'm gonna leave that alone. But I'm gonna let you continue because we buy into every conspiracy theory that these people throw out. But go ahead.
And it totally makes sense. Like, look at our experience. How many times have we been lied to? So now we believe alternate things because we're so used to it being lied to. So we feel empowered by trying to find out, you know, what's really going on. And it's so funny because I had that conversation with my father. My father is all about that life. And well, partially, not all about it, but a lot of it. And he'll be telling me about all these different things and this and that and yada yada. I said, Daddy, rich people gonna do what rich people gonna do, and they're gonna keep doing it whether I like it or not. Because at the end of the day, I'm not a Rockefeller, and I'm not, you know, one of these big banking families, or I'm not one of them. I'm not in the 1% that can, okay, we're gonna go kill these people today. That's not me. So for me to sit here and try to figure out what the rich people are doing, like, I'm gonna waste my life. Not to say I shouldn't have any kind of awareness. I mean, absolutely, you want to try to be as aware as possible, but when it becomes all consuming, when all you do is eat, sleep, breathe, and spit on about it, like, now that's a problem. That's a considerable problem. And especially when, so, and this is kind of like what I had said to you earlier, like, are we nation building or are we going to keep getting distracted? Because, and I get it, because it's kind of like, you know, when people go through relationship problems and, oh, he hurt me, I'm never going to let it happen again. And then they think everybody's against them. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. But that's also not healthy. And like, I'm trying to think of what the word, it's dysfunctional.
Right.
It's a dysfunctional mindset. And we understand that in every other area of life, but this, come on. Like, so when people say it's conflated, it absolutely gets conflated, because you got people saying Hotep, and then, which I don't even understand how people get an O in a Hotep. Like, it's HTP, but whatever, I digress. I'm getting on a tangent. But I just can't understand how we could see everything else and spend all this time doing this research and not see the okie doke. But then you say you see the okie doke. Like, this is why it's like, but I get it. We have a 6th grade education for a majority of the population. And then they, like, there's another statistic. It's old. I'm like, I wish I could remember it, but I heard it while I was in class a long time ago. And, you know, it's something like 70-something% of people of color, and Black people specifically, are educated in urban school systems. Now, I don't know about you, but I haven't heard much kind, beautiful, exemplary stuff coming out of urban schools. Now, have things changed over the years? Yes and no. But if that's our base of education, or lack thereof, it makes sense. Like, they even say that, where it's like the higher your educational level, the more you are not as likely to believe certain things. Or they even say, like, you know, the more education you have, the more of an atheist, or, you know, like, you are self-reliant. So I get it. It's a human function, but it just, no. And it's this idea also that, like, a lot of people, because, and this is like a conversation I kind of keep going back and forth with, like, that whole idea of, like, oh, the Kemetu put people into slavery. Yeah, they did. They were a whole civilization. Like, they had paid laborers, they had free labor. It was a mix.
Talk about it.
So, I mean, like, why do we want to have warm fuzzies here? Like, they were human beings doing human being things, needing to run a nation. Like, You think everybody, like, clearly we all know that everybody down in Washington ain't doing warm, fuzzy, great stuff.
Facts.
We know this. So why are we going to sit here and be like, oh, well, the ancestors were just floating on clouds and they were just giving hugs out every day and they survived on glitter? Like, what?
I tell people all the time, stop acting like Kemet, ancient Kemet was Wakanda. Like they did things like normal civilizations do. 3 types of slavery, if you want to categorize it like that. You had forced labor, where people actually got paid, but they had to do it, but they got paid. That ain't slavery. But you want to categorize it as that because they were forced? Fine, I take it. Then you had chattel slavery, who were prisoners of war from conflicts they had with other nations.
Yep.
Well, let's look at the bright side. At least they didn't commit mass genocide and annihilate those people totally. And they let those people, those prisoners of war, work their way into comedic civilization after a period of time. The other prisoners of war were people who committed crimes, rape, robbery, bestiality, and other things that were illegal within the confines of the civilization. But again, after a period of time, they could work their way back into civilization, depending on what the crime was. And then the last one was indentured servitude, where I would say, okay, Queen, I'm in debt. Can I pay my way? Can I work my way into your family as an indentured servant to pay off my debt? And I don't want to be broke. I don't want to be into this debt anymore. And if you let me do that, fine. But that's on me because I want to get out of debt. And I need to feed my family. So can I work for you to feed my family? So we have to give context to these this topic of slavery in ancient Kemet. Let's not conflate it with the slavery that our ancestors in the antebellum South went through. And that's what people tend to want to do.
And it's a very odd conversation in general. Like, if you know anything, like, nothing is going to be apples to apples. Nothing's going to be exactly the same. Again, you have cultural context, you have time period, you have all these other things going on. But it's like, again, it's like a form of escapism where people want to escape this reality and like, oh, I'm just going to go to Kemet and it's going to be great. And it's like, it wasn't like that. Like,
exactly.
There was a bunch of human beings trying to survive collectively.
Exactly.
Like, whether people, like, there's texts in there that talk about if you want to have peace and you go into a man's house, totally stay away from his wife. Now that could tell you what the hell you think was going on back then.
Exactly.
In the axioms, but people want to, like, just have this weird. And again, that's if people go, oh, I do comedic yoga, and they think that means they're comedic, and it's like, no, you just doing exercises that are, okay, they're gonna help you. They are divinely inspired by Kemet. That's cool, but what's the use of going to yoga and then telling your kid, leave me the F alone?
Right.
Like, you still talking to your spouse wild.
Right.
Like, okay, but that's that people, it's just like kind of just missing. And then this idea that Kemet existed way before all these other systems, but yet we want to shape Kemet into what we're experiencing now, which partially we do have to do, because clearly it's thousands of years later, so we have to make it applicable. But there's a lot of other stuff. Like I said, we bring in the trauma in, we bring in the Abrahamic traditions, we bring in all these other things, and it's just like, shouldn't it be not to say throw the baby out with the bathwater, but can we take the baby out, put the baby over here, throw the water out, clean the tub out, let's put some bleach in there, and then put the soap and all the other essential oils and all the stuff, put it back in. But y'all just like, you know what? Just keep coming in the tub we'll make room. Come on.
Right. Come on, everybody, just jump in with your filth.
Exactly. And then don't change the border and then be mad at each other and say, oh, you're irrelevant.
Right. There go that question, that description again.
Exactly. And it's like ancient Kemet existed for thousands of years.
Almost 4,000 to be exact.
Exactly.
So, and I tell people all the time that this was an ever evolving civilization.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a presentation when the ancient Kemetic youth saw something that didn't work. So we had like a brother, and shout out to this brother. I got a lot of respect for him. Alfredo Valentin, the BK apologist, right? He put out a gift, and it was like such and such. They committed, I forget what it retainer sacrifice, and it's like you talking about two kings, because when we really examine it, it was two kings in the first dynasty that committed this practice. So we talking about 30 dynasties over a 3,000 year period that practiced retainer sacrifice, right? Where they had their servants commit suicide and be buried with them, or had them killed and be buried with them. However you want to size it up. Mm-hmm. Two kings out of 30 dynasties in 3,000 years, and you bringing it up to say what? Mm-hmm. What? And I'm dead, excuse my language, I'm dead ass serious. Out of 3,000 years and 30 dynasties, what relevance do two kings practicing something have to do with anything? You brought it up for what? But he yet brought it up. You see what I mean? Yeah. I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? So and there is no archaeological record of this occurring at any other time. There's no documented record of it happening at any other time. Yet he brought it up as an apologetic for what? It makes no sense to me. That's like me saying that I killed an ant, one ant out of 3,000 that I saw. Like what relevance does me killing that one ant have to do when I let 3,000 ants live? I don't get it. Yeah. But that was the point of the meme, or the gift, or whatever it was. I don't understand. So, and I say that to say sometimes when people feel like they making a point, you're really not saying anything. And that's with all respect and love to the brother. You're not saying anything, because in the grand scheme of Kemet, they saw that practice and they said, hold on, that don't make sense. Everybody has another brother who associated with that brother said, like, hey, the pharaohs don't love you. Only pharaohs can get into the afterlife. But we see that was true at a certain point. But we know that eventually they looked and said, wait a minute, that don't make sense. And within the story of Asar, we know that in the confines of that story, he, or that deity, whatever you want to deem it, that principle opened it up for everybody to come into the afterlife and have their heart weighed. So I'm just like, do you even know what you're talking about? You saw somewhere that everybody couldn't get into the afterlife, but you didn't give it any context. And that's the part that offends me personally, because I'm like, okay, you made your little point in saying what you said, but you didn't give it any context, because if you really knew what you were talking about, you would have gave it the full context of saying, but at this juncture, they realized that didn't make sense, and everybody was allowed to get it, but they don't do that, because you're making an apologetic to compare and contrast, and we don't need to do that, because the Comedic tradition stands on its own, and your tradition stand on its own. But I know I ranted for a minute, but
that's fine. It's totally fine, and I totally agree with you, because And that's even something else. We do that all the time to each other, like, oh, well, you didn't do this right, so I'm not going to listen to you anymore. Like, really? Like, we're that shallow now that all we do is a person. And again, it goes back to that Abrahamic way of thinking, like, you have to be perfect. Like, no. And like you said, the culture evolved. If we look, like you said, at the end, before the whole fall and everything like that, where more and more, I don't want to say everybody in the society, but more and more people were having these, how can I say, that they were starting to build their own burial chambers and things like that. And we start to see, more than just the king and the king's family. So if we were to say, all right, we are now picking up this torch, then you know what I'm saying? Like, if we just go by, like, all right, if it ended like that and only the Nasut and his family were getting buried and could go to the afterlife and this, that, and the third, all right. But that wasn't the case when at the end of it. So, like, what are you even talking about?
What are you talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Can you see the comment from Byron Washington?
That is a response to the fairy tale coming. What does CC mean?
You know what? I don't know. That's my man, so I'm thinking I should know, but I don't.
Is it? I guess it's conscious community.
I think so. I think you own it. So not y'all, obviously. So he's not talking about you and I.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, but I would, if I'm understanding what's being communicated correctly, that is a lot of what's out there. And respect again to the brother you had mentioned before about studying for a year. And because I kind of feel bad. I feel like I'm kind of picking on him. Like, he's my exemplar today. So I apologize. But it's like, when you have one person who studied for a year or two, and then another person who studied for a year or two, and then they're going back and forth, and then they got somebody else who's just, lighting candles. And it's like, oh, this is why y'all think we crazy.
Exactly.
It's like a kindergarten class with a substitute teacher.
There you go.
Like, it's just all over the place. So it's unfortunate, and I definitely say this, and I say it continuously, and I hope that we maybe one day get there. If not, maybe I've been thinking about this more and more. Like, maybe we need to just have, like, how Tavis Smiley used to have the State of the Black Union. Like, maybe we just need, because I literally didn't even know that you had mentioned that there is a temple out where you are. And I'm like, I didn't even know that. How many other people and groups are out there that we don't even talk to each other? And we're all, one group is doing this, one group is doing that, one group is doing this. And, you can have autonomy. You can have autonomy because all the different gnomes had a certain amount of autonomy, but they were on the same page. Are we on the same page? Are we all like, what about all these different study groups? Well, what are we studying? Is there a standard to what we're studying? Are we all studying the same stuff so that we can have a common conversation?
Good point.
Like, it's unfortunate, but again, it's part of it because no system starts out perfect. Right. The Christians didn't start out. They went through all stuff to get their stuff together. The Muslims, same thing. Every group has their growing pains and time that they need to get it together. We are reconstructing. And so far as I know, the comedic legacy between Raul Nefer Amen, between Baba Heru, between all these different elders like Muada Ashby and so, like, it didn't really start getting put into practice of being lived on until we had that segue in the 70s. So we literally, as a whole tradition, are not even that old.
Right.
And we're not necessarily all on the same page. We're just an island here, and so once we kind of start talking to each other, it can be more of a living, breathing collection and society and nation, if you will. But until that happens, and I get it because everybody, oh, I'm an individual. Nobody can tell me what to do. I have all the answers within. That's your ego. Calm it down. Love you though. We like, even if we were to break it down in the smallest bits and pieces within one's own family, if there's no communication, we're not eating dinner.
Facts.
If we're not communicating, the lights are going to go out because the bills are not paid. You have to have that communication. It's natural. In Kemet, they had communication. We had Jehuti to give us the wisdom, to tell us, like, this is the way we should go. Do I answer? I'm like, thank you. But it's just, it's so unfortunate but beautiful at the same time, because we are in that place, and our elders have paved the way, but we can't get distracted by conscious United States, this is what you're doing to us, blah blah blah, because if we are comedic people, we are comedic people. We see this is what the ancestors did, this is where we trying to recreate that, because that was amazing. It had its good and its bad. It's not going to be perfect. Even Wakanda messed up. Wakanda did nothing to help their neighbors.
Facts.
And it ended up coming back to bite them. So there is no such thing as perfection, but we can methodically figure this thing out. So again, to say, oh, it's irrelevant and this and that, and does it matter? Like, so I've heard people say, oh, well, we got enough churches, we don't have a problem of moral, like of faith. Yes, we do. How many people get cheated on every day? How many single parents do we still have? How many jobless? One of the biggest parts of our community is the fact that we have so many jobless men. That we're trying to do entrepreneurship, but yet we still don't have the proper education to get us there. We don't have the proper credit to get us there. But we're going to sit here and say Kemet is irrelevant when that's the whole blueprint. We got thousands of years of something that works, but it's irrelevant. Come on. It just don't make no sense. It don't make no sense. In general.
Before we go to our last question, I want to say this, because I think you made many good points. Like I said, I wish I had my little bomb effect active, because I would have dropped 1,000 of them by now. But in real talk, as a culture and as a people, we have to get out of this mind state where we want to present Kemet as ancient Wakanda, when every civilization had its flaws. Mm-hmm. We can embrace those flaws, explain them, and move on, because every civilization had them. Mm-hmm. But we had a 3,000. Can't nobody name to me. I haven't seen it yet. No one can name a 3,000-year civilization that was consistent, but yet ever evolving. And the way I explain that is, I always say that in America, the way we dress and the way we style ourselves change every 5 to 10 to 20 years, right? But in Kemet, they dress the same all the time. Like it wouldn't know that was consistent, because their culture was consistent. But the ideology, the mentality, it was ever evolving, because when they saw something that they felt was wrong, they changed it. They didn't hold on to it because of tradition, because of a particular mentality. No, it's wrong. Let's adjust. Mm-hmm. And I don't know any other tradition that necessarily does that. Stagnation is death. If you leave a cup of water sitting too long, it becomes stagnant, right? And so, but they didn't do that in Kemet. And so I just feel like we have to point those things out, because people act like it didn't happen when we know for a fact historically it did. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I ain't gonna rant too long, because it's your show. So let me.
You actually gave me a thought before we get to the last question.
Go ahead.
And is this idea that, again, how I said earlier about being holistic, like we really, really, really have to think about this side, because some people, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious. Like, no, Religion, I was watching a video the other day. They said religion was what kept everything going. You give your offerings, the priests get to eat. The priests get to eat, they get to hire the farmers. The farmers grow the food. Like, it's all interrelated and interdependent, because this was a group of people that lived in a desert that if they didn't work together, they was gonna die.
Facts.
And we are just not even there. We we want to segment ourselves again based on the traumas that we've experienced from whatever religious traditions we grew up as, from growing up in this country or what have you, that it's just like, what was the actual function? So it's like, no, I'm going to give, like, even if I just want to think on the most basic of levels, let's say, like, I have my altar sitting here and they're lit. And on my altar, I have like a plate of fruit. Now, quite frankly, if I didn't buy that fruit, would I have it in my house? Would I have that nourishment for my body if I didn't buy it to put it on that altar to offer to the natural? So there, you know what I mean? Like, that's how interrelated this is, because you're not gonna throw no moldy bread up there. And then when you eat the food that's off the altar, that is a divine thing, because it is now blessed. It is now going to feed you body and soul, air quotations, if how I'm trying to explain it. So it's just this idea of like, when we think about it, it's so much bigger. We think too small about what Kemet is and what we think it should be. We think it should be, oh, get your money right. Oh, but dress dope and do this and no, it's a whole life. It's not about just candles. If you're just doing candles, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
It's so huge, and again, it's beautiful and almost scary, because you are unequivocally responsible for all of this. And some people respectfully can't handle that, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Not everybody's meant for it. It's all right. Like, it's no judgment, but I can't pray it away, because when I say my prayers, now, okay, this is what I got to do next. Ooh, let me make sure I put that in the refrigerator because I don't want any gnats coming in. Like, we're constantly going. So it's just this idea that, as you said, like, it's this Wakanda and people are just like running around with streamers in the fields. And it's like, no, it was ugly and disgusting and beautiful and amazing all at the same time, just like we are now.
Absolutely. When we think about the inter, and we think about this interconnectedness, the all who are one, we have to understand that everything is connected. And so we don't have to sit there and compartmentalize this, and this. Like you said, the fruit was given as an offering, yet it provides you with nourishment. And as it provides you with nourishment, it's blessed. Except all of that is interconnected. And so I always talk about the concept of our moon and how our moon personified being these other quote unquote deities or principles, being aspects of our moon or our moon Ra, etc. Because it seems like if I don't explain it in that context, people have a hard time comprehending it any other way. But we could just talk about how nature in and of itself is interconnected. We survive off of nature. I don't care if you go cut down an apple tree or you go to the grocery store and buy an apple, you still get nourishment from an apple. But we have to make it so complex that we like it's so simple, but we have to make it complex because we've been so paralyzed and so programmed to do so. But it's not that hard. It's really simple. Yep. Nature takes care of nature, period. The all that are who are one is a simple concept, period. So
and when you say that, and then I'm gonna let you go ahead with the next question. Because now I'm like, you sparking all the little thoughts. So
go ahead.
But there is someone at the temple, a friend of mine, and the one thing he always says, and he's very Montu energy. So he always says, I don't need to know nothing about you. Just tell me who your governing deities are, and I will know what I need to know. And when I started thinking about that, because and I can't speak for all places and other temples and what they do or don't do or what have you, but at least where I'm from, besides you get a deity or Neteru for your name, or Neter, not a Neteru, you get your life reading, and you get 3 Neteru. So I am Orset, I am Heteru, and I am Ra. So if you understand, and again, if you understand the positives and negatives, if you understand the stories of those 3 Neteru, and when I sat back and thought about it, I was like, dang, that is so true. I feel so exposed. Like, how does, like, and I think back to it, but when I think I got that reading maybe like the first year that I had came to the temple, and I'm just like, that is something else. The nature that I have for my name has a whole different energy, and I'm like, yup, I see that too. And it's so true, because as I said, the Neteru that rule him, when I know, I'm like, oh yeah, that's him to a T. That's it. Like my other friend, and she, these are my governor. I'm like, yeah, you can see it. So it's like, we don't have to have a conflict. And if I do have a conflict, let me go read the mythos and say, how did those 2 Neteru interact with each other? Now that'll help me interact with you, because I know how those energies go. That's why I said it's literally the biggest cheat code you could get on so many levels, whether it be your health, whether it be getting along with your family, getting along with your friends, getting along in society, doing right for yourself, whatever. It is the biggest cheat code, because it's so many levels to it, and it's all related, and you don't got to be perfect for it.
There you go.
So.
There you go. So let's go to this last question. And it is now, and I make a statement first. So I feel that as an ideology and spiritual tradition, the comedic perspective stands on its own. As best you can describe to our audience, why is comedic spirituality so much more than just an alternative to the Abrahamic faiths, number one, and number two, any other spiritual tradition for that matter? And I'm gonna preface that by, I'm gonna step away for a bit, but go in however long you want to, and I'll be back shortly. But just build on that particular question, because I think it's very, very relevant.
Okay. Y'all, he done told me I talk too long. Like, that's what I just heard. Let me stop. I think the first thing that
Nope, you don't talk too long. You have, again, my casa, su casa. This is your show. Go ahead.
I just like pulling your leg at this point. So, I thought when I first saw this question, I was like, you know what, that's real interesting. Because it's this idea of choice, and just the idea that life is an endless bunch of choices that we are constantly making. And just overall, like, the function of spirituality is about giving connection, is about helping us, is about how we can have greater value as human beings and individuals, greater value to our family, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's just the idea that spirituality, and I'm getting to like the other parts, but spirituality is the crux of a person's life. It is their morals, it is their values, it is their ethics, it is everything. Like, as much as we, think religion is a bad word, it's this idea that, but with religion, it gives us a common playing ground of, like, between human beings. It gives us a commonality of I'm not going to sleep with your wife. I'm not going to punch that old lady in the face. It tells us this is what the expectation is. This is what you should and shouldn't do. This is, you might mess up over there, but we'll try to get you back on track, because at the end of the day, it's all about us living together. Whether we like it or not, and people like to be, oh, I'm an individual, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, you're not. None of us are. Like, Menyet is not trying to go outside and make bricks to build this apartment building. I'm not trying to smelt steel to make my car. I'm not trying to dig in the ocean to get petrol, to get gas. Like, we're all interdependent on each other. So if we're in this and we got to be around each other, we got to figure out how to get along enough that we don't kill each other so we all don't die. So that idea of choice over life is such an interesting question to me, because no matter how much America and the West wishes like to put into us that I'm an individual, it's a vain concept. Like, it doesn't exist. We can even see this again. I hate to keep bringing it up, but that whole thing with COVID, like, everybody, these people are going to wear a mask. These people aren't going to wear a mask. These people are getting vaccines. These people, like, there is no consensus, and thus things proliferate and drag on, and whether it's real, not real, made up, whatever. The point is, people are still out of jobs because other people had their individuality. Like, and when we look at countries like Italy, where they would go and make sure everybody had food, they would go and make sure certain things were taken care of, and thus they were able to open up way faster than we were. So again, it's that idea of choice, and not to say that we should all be mindless drones, absolutely not. But as I said earlier, we live to be 70 plus years old on average. Like, we have to get along while we're here. And I alluded to it before, as a Chemite, excuse me, we understand that each person has a role, big, small, or what have you, and we depend on each other. And we depend on each other because we uphold Ma'at. I understand that, yes, again, people are going to make mistakes. People are not going to always live up to the standard. But it's this idea that at least we have something to all shoot for. Even if we kind of miss the mark or we go and veer off a little bit, it's this idea that we are moving forward together and progressing together instead of dying as individuals and alone. So this is one of those reasons, like, if we're talking sociology, we're saying, like, human beings, we give social and formal and informal sanctions. So when we don't approve, we frown at each other, we roll our eyes, we do all of these things to let you know, like, hey, you're out of line. Stop doing that. So being comedic is totally in alignment with having a successful, I'm like, oh, let me see. I just saw something pop up. We see that, like, we want to make sure that we have the least amount of deviance as possible, because the more deviance we have, aka isfet, by not sticking to Ma'at, that leads us all to be open and susceptible to harm and potential death, whether it be as a nation, whether it be as individuals, whatever it is. Like, so this idea of being comedic, being community-based, being socially based, not, yes, we care about the afterlife and all this, that, and the third, but we prepare for the afterlife today and here and now with our actions every day. So when people are thinking about how Abrahamic religions triggered, like, did this and they did that to us and blah, 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 they want to say, oh, I'm just spiritual, because they don't want to be part of a group because they're hurt, and I get it. But again, if we're plainly saying this as far as like survival, a group survival, being comedic answers that. It speaks to that, and it gives a blueprint of how to be that way. We have this idea that in the diaspora, we want post-emancipation or independence, depending which country we're talking about. We're living in a dream deferred. We constantly are talking about, well, we should have had this, or the Constitution said that, or these deals did this to us. And, we're constantly dealing with that. But again, Marcus Garvey, Afrocentricity, all of these different theories keep coming back and telling us that we have to come together as a group. And this isn't necessarily to say that, because I know a lot of people say, oh, well, certain Abrahamic religions, that they do community service. And they, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have some of the leaders that we've had. And I get that. But as they say, if you knew better, you do better. That was what fit for back then. That's what, was available to them back then. And that's cool. And if people are still moving in that direction, but I don't see Abrahamic religions moving towards nation, moving toward, like, they're talking about communities and responding to their local communities. And again, it's that missionary angle. It's that, we got to take care of the parishioners type of an angle and take care of our own. But it's small. It's very small, and it's according to these certain little rules. And if you don't fit these rules, hellfire, brimstone, and you suck, and we hate you. And now we got to sit and have conversion therapy and all this other, stuff. We got to fix you. And you can, as a comedic person, we have standards, but you can be yourself. And that's much different of an approach, and it's much less pressure. I mean, my gosh, how much pressure is that? Like, that sounds like something to go on a therapist's couch for. Like, oh my God, and then I'm not going to get into heaven. Like, what? Like, why are we doing this to ourselves? And just overall, when we're talking about being comedic in 2021, like, and I've kind of alluded to this a lot before, like, it's more than just praying and doing rituals and meditating and thinking crystals are cool and knowing your birth charts, because a lot of people think that that's being comedic. And I mean, there's some people who's into that, and they're helpful tools, but we don't worship the tools. Like, that's just weird. That's literally the reason why Martin Luther was just like, nah, Catholics, y'all got it all messed up because y'all are worshiping the tools. It's the same idea. And I get it, because we don't know any better. We've not, like, we can read about Kemet, but we haven't seen it yet. And we're working towards it. But again, it's this idea that being comedic is a practical approach to addressing everyday life, everyday issues, whether it's dealing with and healing our traumas. I mean, the one thing that most people know about being comedic is your diet, getting your diet together, vegan and vegetarianism, which, void, we're prohibited because, hate to break it to y'all, the Kemet to you ate meat. Like, they was not vegan and vegetarian like that. They ate.
Man. Oh, I wish I had my bombs, but go ahead. It
is what it is. Like, we gonna be all right. It helps us deal with poverty. Like, and people say, oh, well, like, as I said with the Abrahamic folks, and, they do charity work, and like, comedic temples do charity work too. We are charged that every holiday. Have you ever seen a comedic calendar? I mean, I know you've seen a comedic calendar, but for the audience, if you look at a comedic calendar, there's holidays like all the time. Like, it's ridiculous how many holidays there are. And we are charged that we are supposed to do charity for every holiday. It's it's ridiculous. So it's like we're constantly giving to our local community. We're constantly donating. Giving, we made feminine care products to give to the homeless. We made COVID things to give to the homeless. We did clothing drives, food drives. We did stuff for women in homes who were battered and domestic violence. Like, we are constantly doing stuff. So, just in general, to just close out that question, the most of the things that people are concerned about, everyday life stuff, because all of that theory stuff and all that history stuff is dope. But when my parent is addicted to something and I got to go home and get my butt whooped every day, I don't give two craps about history. I don't. Like, if I'm, you know what I mean? Like, we going into jobs where people hate it, have anxiety attacks going to work, driving with road rage because they mad because they got to go to this place that they hate. And this is when, like I said, we read the different literature. We read about how would the Neteru handle this? Well, I know I'm not going to do like Satesh. I can't cut nobody up.
Can't do like Sekhmet.
And then, that I ain't even talk. I ain't talking right now because, oh my God. And it's just so funny. Sometimes people, Sekhmet, she's so great. Like, she will literally devour you.
Right.
You want to chill with that. Like, if I ever needed to invoke her, like, it's with the utmost care and respect, because she literally is about getting Ma'at in.
She keep that same energy.
Yeah, like, you know what? Oh, you said you want Ma'at? Where? Oh, that person is the person who's like kicking your back in. They're dead now.
Exactly.
You gotta be very careful when you working with her, because maybe you might just need a little bit of somebody else or something.
Right.
Lord. You and some people be like, oh no, she'll heal you, and I'm like radiation kills cancer.
Right. Did you mean Boss, or did you mean Sekhmet? Which one you talking about?
Because that put some perfume and music and dance.
Right.
Okay, we could flow with this, but you going all the way to the radiation? Okay, if you want to. But again, I get it, because people don't know no better. They just think she's a strong and powerful woman, and we live in a society where women are treated blah blah blah. Like, okay, still you need to calm down though.
The comedic tradition is the one tradition I think that the saying "you think you know, but you have no idea" applies the most.
Mm-hmm.
Because people talk out of turn all the time, but they have no idea.
Nope, not at all. And I remember, like, literally, case in point. I remember it was a Rep When Pet one year. Actually, it was my first year. And I'm like, I'm about to embarrass myself, so feel free to laugh at me and not laugh with me at the same time. There's always room for a little Sekhmet. There's always room for Sekhmet. I just don't want to be very close. That is all. But just overall, at this Rep When Pet, and I was going through it. This was post-drunkard years, and I was dating this guy, and then come to find out we wasn't dating, and it was a situationship, and I was just confused and hurt, and oh my gosh, and I thought we was going somewhere, and he threw certain stuff in my face, and blah blah blah, and I said to the Neteru, "Show me what I need to do." Oh my gosh. Oh, I was in for a world of hurt. And it was revealed to me, but it was revealed to me in such a scary way that now I know better. Like, we don't ask the Neteru questions like that. We're not open-ended. This isn't an essay question. Like, we won't be very specific. Like, okay, I need to know X, Y, Z. And if you got some time, how I can go about it and be healthy and not nobody die. Like, cause It is real. It is so real. And, you know, like, I know a lot of people be like, oh, I want to open up my third eye. And I would like, no, you don't. No, you don't. You're not ready. Why don't let's stay in kindergarten and go to first grade. Like, why are we going to college? You're in kindergarten. You need to chill. And, you know, but again, it's because people see, oh, I'm gonna light candles and la 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 la, and have no idea what they're dealing with. Like, I literally had, and I don't talk religion with my kids, but I taught in alternative school, and this one young lady was like, Miss, you're different. And I'm like, I plead the fifth. I don't want to talk about this. I said, you are underage. I'm not trying to get in trouble with nobody's parents.
Right.
So she, you know, she wasn't comedic, but, you know, she was not Christian. And she was talking about how, oh, I'm doing all these spells and this, that, and the third. Her father died, her uncle died, and her grandfather died.
Ooh.
16. Now, not only did they die, but it messed her up bad. Like real bad. Because she didn't know what she was. That's why I'm like, y'all need to be careful. Like young folks, new people, be careful who you listening to. Be careful what you're trying to get into. Be careful what you like invoking. Just be very, very careful because it gets too real too fast, especially if you don't know what you're doing. That's like getting in a car at 4. Wait, maybe 8, because at least you could get the pedals.
Exactly.
Like, but just because you could get the pedals don't mean you need to be in that car. Maybe you need to be in the passenger seat or the back seat just a little while longer. Like, chill. You'll be okay. You can wait. You don't have to have it here and now. It will come. Stay the course. So that's my super long answer.
No. I mean, it's sufficient though, because I'm gonna throw a statement at you. This is from I'm not gonna even name her, but much respect to her. But this is from a Christian apologist, and this is a quote from her Facebook page. She says, "That ain't your ancestors you talking to, sis. That's a demon." What's your response to that statement?
Ooh, oh, that's so layered. It's so layered because, for real, it could be a demon. It could be an ancestor who was a rapist. It could be an ancestor who was a drunkard, a crackhead. You better. That's why I'm saying you be careful what you're doing. But once you know, and not even just take the time to learn for yourself, watch other people do it. Watch what it looks like. What are the features of it? Like, study it for real. Get you at least a high school diploma in it, so you know what you're doing. So you know, like earlier today, I was doing my stuff. I said, nope, I almost messed up because I was doing ancestor money for my ancestors to be with me, you know, as we was doing the interview today, and I almost forgot to say my ancestors of the light, because we all know we got some ancestors like, you need to. We don't want to repeat your name. Light and love and healing to you, but I don't need you coming up and being on my shoulder as we having this conversation today. Like, no, I need the ancestors of the light. I need the Netjeru. Like, we invoking positively. Like, we are definitely not, you know, just calling any old body. Mm-hmm. You ain't gonna. That's like going outside and just saying, "Hey, everybody," and you don't know who's gonna come up to you.
Exactly.
And if you look like the target, who knows what they're gonna do to you?
Right.
So it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
I think it's said as like a gotcha moment, but what people fail to understand is comedic practitioners understand how spirituality works too. You know what I mean? So no, you ain't getting me. I just have a little bit more layered understanding of what it is you're trying to express. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And even still, it's like, well, who was she directing that at? Who was she, you know, like, what are you even really trying to say? Well, what's her understanding? Does she even really understand? Does she call on ancestors, or does she think it's spooky and scary? Because if you're coming from a spooky and scary place, like, you know, you thinking demons with horns and like the Conjuring movie and eyes in the walls and all this weirdo stuff. And I'm like, we got demons right now. I could go downstairs and walk down the street and see some demons if I wanted to.
Facts.
You know, like this ain't no spooky, or people be like, oh, it's spookism. Like, no, you the spook. You scared. Like, you the one who's weirded out. But that's because you coming from the Abrahamic way of looking at stuff. And I get it. That's cool. Just, you don't got to fix your mouth and come over here with that.
Right.
That's cool. You go convert somewhere else.
No doubt. Yeah, and I think that's all it's about. Like, if I can fix my mind to understand where you coming from, don't summarily dismiss where I'm coming from. Try to get some real understanding of it instead of looking at particular items and saying, oh, I get it, and this is that, and that is this, and you, because this the last thing I'm gonna say before we close out.
Okay.
What's your opinion of people saying comedic people or comedic practitioners and people who follow the comedic tradition have a Eurocentric understanding of the comedic text? Helena Blavatsky, and I'm saying her last name wrong. I don't follow her, and I never learned anything from her. But I forget the however many crucified saviors, whoever, I forget the European who wrote that book. Mm-hmm. But you know the typical line of thought that they say we get, or comedic practitioners get their line of thought from. What do you say to that narrative? Because that's a prevailing thought within the community outside of the comedic community.
That is so unfortunate. I'm so sorry. Like, I literally can just laugh at that because they clearly don't know who I know. Like, everybody, I literally can't think of one. The first person they go to is Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop. They go to Dr. Ben. They go to, like, they go through all of the, you know.
Raketti, Amen. But I have even heard people say, well, where did they get it from? As if to question their credentials. And I'm like, really?
Beloved, where did you get your stuff from? Did you not get your stuff from white people? Cut it out. Cut it out, because you're doing the same thing. Like, what are we talking about right now? That's so silly. Like, it's all, like I said, it's all about that conversion, gotcha moment, ego. Because some people do it for ego. Some people, because it's do it for a check. Like, just like Meek Mills, do it for a check. They see it as a money-making opportunity. There's a lot of opportunists out there where, like, I literally know people selling stuff that's way big for like $20 when I know that's like $3 worth of something. And taking advantage of people who don't know no better, taking advantage of people who are hurt in general. They're trying to heal themselves. They're open, they're vulnerable, and these people go in and attack. And again, just because they have the trappings, don't make it that they're, you know, an actual comedic practitioner. Like, listen to how these people are talking. Just literally listen to how the people, don't get all taken in by, you know, metaphysics and I'm going to float in my third eye. You know, people get super impressed by that, and that's cool. You could be all into that. But if they're not talking about how this applies to your everyday, if they're not talking about that, then, like, unless that's just not a concern, unless you just got it like that, you don't need to worry about here and now. But if they're not talking about that, then why are you listening to them? Like, you know, like, oh, I'm going to interdimensionally travel to the something region and blah, blah. I mean, that's cool. That's beautiful. But that sure is escapism. You just want to get out of this nonsense. Why can't you talk to me about how I could better deal and be a better person with all of this going on? Why are we talking about out there somewhere? That's weird. It just, and again, that's why when going to that last question, like, nope, if we talking about social justice, we got answers. If we talking about, how to rehabilitate ourselves, we got answers. We talking about how to create, again, largest, like you said, almost 4,000 years, economy, labor, putting people to work, providing for families. People didn't, not to say people didn't go hungry because, starvation, but, there are the answers right there.
I 100% agree, because it's like they talk about things that they have really no idea about, and just because you studied for a year, like 12 months, trying to say you studied the comedic tradition is like a drop in the bucket, literally, with regards to the depth of the content you would have to get into to get a real understanding of what it is you're trying to study. And so people who really think they have a clue, they just have no idea.
No.
And I see our sister drop something. Why do you think the comedic community that are actually practitioners are constantly under attack? What's your response to that?
Okay, so I think this is a two-pronged question. So the idea of actual practitioners, I think that in itself needs to be explored. Just because, again, there's some people who say they're comedic, but I'm not sure. And a lot of the people who are kicking up dirt for a lot of these conversations, from what I've observed in a very limited scope, because I'm out here trying to live a better life. I'm not sitting trying to, have arguments with folks on interwebs. That's, there's more to life. But why we're under constant attack, I think it's a multi-pronged thing, because people who are actual practitioners, and again, using that language, they're not on the internet talking. So the people who are majority of the voices are people like, once you get, and not to say that anything is wrong with some of these people, they're well-meaning, they've studied Kemet, but studying Kemet doesn't make you a practitioner. Like, just because I took math classes, I'm not a mathematician. I understand the basic concepts, but I am by no stretch a mathematician.
Right.
So you can know something, but if you're not, again, some of the loudest voices, but we look at their behavior. Are they abiding by Ma'at, or are they calling names? Are they abiding by Ma'at and then having to come up where you got to pay $400 for a basic, not even a 101 level thing, like a 001 level something, and charging, but care about the community. So it's like the actual practitioners kind of get caught in the middle, because we don't really talk. We don't want that sauce, because I don't even like spaghetti. I don't want that. Like, people keep trying to serve me, and it's like, again, like I said, I literally in the past couple of months just found out what a hotep is, and I'm so used to people, oh, you a hotep this, a hotep that. I had no clue what that, like, I had an idea, but wow, because that's a socio-political group that has nothing to do with Kemet.
Exactly.
Zero to do with Kemet.
They all maniacs and all of these different, yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I mean, they're talking, like, I mean, they're talking about socialism, capitalism, this, that, and that. I've never heard them say anything actually about Kemet. They talk about the American experience. They talk about politics. They talk about Black folks. They talk about all kind of other stuff. Not one time have I heard them say anything. So if you got people like that who's loud and about and saying hotep, and then Menyet says Hatep when she greets you, or when I say goodbye, I say Shemiyam Hatep. Oh, well, she must be with them. So honestly, I feel like we are under attack because we have bad PR. and the people who are using the name, and the people who are using for a come up, and the people who are, you know, in the scholarly realm, they're the ones kicking up all this dirt. But actual practitioners, like, I know, oh, I hate to bring this up. I feel like I'm about to do it. But I know there are certain priests who go on the interwebs and entertain such things, which, you know, everybody's entitled to do what they do. And Menyet is Menyet, and she's gonna be quiet about that because I'm like, so far, I only got a couple of texts, so I'm okay. No ringing yet. Nation building is very sad. Like, battling other folks about what they think about it. What kind of low self-esteem stuff is that? No, you have to like me. You have to listen to what I say. Like, what? What kind of high school level stuff is this? That's so weird. Like, why are we even talking about this? Why are we even debating this? Like, why are you even that's why I said, like, what is the function? Why are you attacking me? What have I done to you that actually makes you attack me? You don't like my ideals? So what? I don't care if you don't like my ideals. Do you care if I care about your ideals? No, you don't. You're going to live your life. I don't pay your bills. So why, like, you know what I mean? Like, when I think about it in that context, it's just like, it's illogical. So if it's illogical, it must be for either ego or money.
Yeah.
That just must be what it is.
One of the things you said when we first started corresponding that struck a chord with me, and I don't even consider I'm not a practitioner. I study the comedic text, and I feel like in many aspects I have the ability to teach a lot of different arenas with regards to it. But one of the things you said that struck me, because I always feel the need to respond when somebody says something, and you said, I mentioned something about people of different beliefs or faiths, etc., having opinions about and you were like, yeah, it's irrelevant to me. And I was like, man, she said it so nonchalant and so relaxed. I was just like, wow. And ever since you said, it was like a seed being planted, because ever since you said it, I've been so bored with those conversations to the point where I'm like, yeah, I'm about to start getting into some other topics because I just don't have the energy for it. And I'm almost like, I wish I wouldn't have even brought it up to the queen, because ever since you said it, I cannot shake it, because it don't matter. Ultimately, it don't matter what a person who doesn't look at this particular topic the way I do, or can extract what from it I can extract. It don't matter what they think about it. I was trying to explain to an individual what I see in the Asar Set and Haru story, and I said, from a practical standpoint, I could look at it as an agricultural story. I could look at it from that standpoint. I could look at it from a spiritual standpoint. I could look at it from a modern context, and I could say the black woman and the black man. The black man goes out into the world and he's ripped apart every day. And who puts him back together again? Who gathers his pieces and puts him back together again every single day? The black woman, right? I could use that as a metaphor every day. And it's like, they looking like, what are you talking about? You didn't get what I said. So it's like, why am I wasting my time trying to? So when you said that, it was like the light bulb just, and I was like, man, I wish I wouldn't even brought it up, because now I don't even feel like having them conversations.
I'm so sorry. I mean, okay. So I've been saying that for a minute because I just think it's silly. But I've said that to other people, and the response was, well, no, we need to keep having these conversations because our people are still within the grips of that system, and we need to show them the way out. And I don't necessarily disagree with that, but you only gonna convince grown folks but so much. You know what I mean? Like, just if we're looking at psychology and stuff, people not gonna change until they want to change, desire change, or hit absolute rock bottom that they are willing to say, well, damn, I guess I have no other option but to change. So to keep going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, when we could be using that time to build an actual system, so when these people are ready, we're here and we got it together and it's a well-oiled machine. Why? It just doesn't make sense to me. And at the end of the day, if I went into a church around the block, you think they're gonna care about, you're not comedic, how dare you, and you don't believe in this and that? They're gonna be like, that's cute, Jesus don't. They don't give two squats.
Exactly.
I can go talk to the imam, and the imam's gonna be like, you know what? I'm gonna change. Like,
Allah Akbar.
yeah, exactly. He's gonna keep it pushing. So, like, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, you know, give him a book. Send them a video. They done argue. Our ancestors or our recent ancestors already argued about this. It's already been done. Send it to them on tape. Why are we having the same? Okay, if they need clarification, if they need assistance and this, that, and third, but I am under the impression, again, like I said, people like to do this because it's a come up and it's money. It's conscious entertainment. It's oh yeah, so who Christians versus the Hebrew Israelites? I want to see that drama. Like, go watch Love and Hip Hop. It's conscious Love and Hip Hop. Like, it is nothing different. You know, and people be like, oh, well, it's education, you know, and I get, again, it's the hunger for knowledge. You want to know, you want to get out of this nonsense that people have been in, but at the expense of showing the behind all the time. So then of what value is it really? Like, you think that's how the ancient Kemetu was doing? Like, I'm going to show you, hey, and like, just show them full. It's silly. And then it's like, you know, did they eventually get into converting and stuff like that? Okay, later in history, specifically when we had other systems right there with us. But when we were all together, and when I say we, I mean the ancestors, because clearly Menyet was not necessarily there, in energy only. But you know, they didn't worry about that because it was just the way they lived life. So when people be like, oh, there was no word for religion, that's because it was everyday life. You didn't have to have a word for something that was just.
It's just what it was.
Yeah, it was being, it was living, it was breathing. So it was just the way. It was what we do. This is how things are. So to make it into entertainment, it cheapens overall what we're trying to do. It makes the rest of us look bad. And then it makes us like, that was another conversation I got into, and somebody has said to me like, oh, well, you know, our modality has to do with healing. Like, we have to constantly be healing people. I'm like, oh my God, like we're not even therapists. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people have deep issues, and that's cool to have those conversations. But if people are going to be combative and call names and belittle each other and all this, that, and the third, then there's no more conversation to be had, because you're not actually interested in respecting me. You're interested in making me a spectacle so that I can make you look good, so that you can get more people following you, to give you money, to put money in your coffers, to follow your faith. Like, that's what it's about. And so it's like, why are we being attacked? Because for whatever reason, we keep responding. Why are we attacked? Because we're a threat. Because we're giving an alternate to people because they're tired of the nonsense that other groups be doing. So I'm like, period.
And you know what? You just sparked me. And this, I promise, this is my last question. Because I see this all the time. So you have individuals who have comedic names, and yet they have an aversion to comedic practitioners.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have these critiques for comedic practitioners, yet they carry comedic names.
Mhm.
And even recently, and this is a brother who I have a high esteem for, and he was telling me that in all reality, the comedic tradition is dead. What's your opinion of that particular stance? And that is, I promise, my last question. And after you answer it, we will close out.
Is it dead? Well, I'm alive, so no. Um, I respectfully, I believe the comedic legacy right now is in a star. I believe that we've been chopped up. We've been, again, because the foundation, we're not all moving together as one. We got some people like you said, like they just got names, but they don't really live it. They out there making a check. They out there making a name for themselves and, hurting people and then, blah, 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 blah. So we're all over the place. So in my opinion, we're in a state of a SAR. Now, there are some groups that are the living Asar, that they are out there and they are, on that level of, because with for the audience or for those who don't know, Asar was said to bring civilization. He was the one who gave civilization to man and showed them how to do agriculture, how to till the land, how to, move differently. So in this, if the land is here in the United States, in the UK, and South Africa, in Brazil, which is like so interesting to me, like how many people in Brazil are really on the comedic tip right now, and South Africa, like it's so amazing to me. Especially because I speak no Portuguese whatsoever. But, we have these groups who are tilling the land and they're being that living Asar. And then, we have the Osset coming in like, okay, now let's learn how to clothe ourselves. Let's, like a mother and a father, like you said, with baby Haru. And this is how you do things. And then there's other parts where Asar is in the Menta. And Asar is in the afterlife and he's being bandaged and he's going through that 40-day venture, until he could be great again because he messed up, and long story short, like when you said that whole thing about, Asar, Aset, and Haru, I love Nebuchadnezzar. Like Nebuchadnezzar is one of my favorite netrets like ever. And I know I said that wrong. My Seba is gonna be mad at me, like you mispronounced that. But she is one of my favorite because to me she is one of the most relatable. Like, and people don't talk about Nebuchadnezzar. Oh, she's the help. Oh, she has to do with funerals and this kind of stuff. Nebuchadnezzar, because she had, and I'm not saying nothing like horrible, but it's like you could only see her bad self-esteem in her marriage to Satesh. That he was barren, he could not give her children. Everybody loved Offset. Everybody, so she was in her feelings, and she slept with her own sister's man, and then had the kid. So, or in some stories, she abandoned the kid and Offset took in Empu. So it's just like how much, when we say a phenomenal, relatable, you don't got to be perfect because Asar got so full of himself that his brother kept trying to tell him like, yo, you messing up, and he wasn't listening. So he's like, you know what? I'm about to be king. Chop, chop, chop to you. And then, you know what I mean? Like all these different layers. So when we're sitting here and we're thinking about like that story and how this is how we need to be, because there is still redemption, because Osset didn't punch Nebuchadnezzar in the face. She exercised forgiveness. She exercised like, you know what? He messed up. You messed up. But I love you. We got to move forward, because how would she have put Asar together if she didn't have her sister? How would she have gotten there without Empu? How would she have found them?
Yep.
You know, like, but we're so busy. Oh, you hurt me. You cheated on me. And it's just like, it's a bigger picture. So are you going to be in your feelings or are you going to get through life?
Exactly.
What we
Because life, people don't understand. Life I say this all the time. In 3 words, I can sum up life. It goes on. And that sums it up perfectly because you hit on something that's so key. Not only did she said, you are my sister and he is my husband. And I have to go on. Period.
Mhm.
So she enlisted her sister to help her find her husband, and then their child to help her find her husband, and ultimately conceived her and her husband's child, which ultimately was what? The salvation of the land and the people. So
Exactly.
it's so multi-layered, and you summed it up perfectly because she could have ostracized her sister, ostracized that child, and it could have been a story of complete and utter failure, but instead it was a story of triumph.
Mhm.
And people don't look at it like that because we want to look at it from a westernized mind.
Mhm.
Sutek or Satesh is evil, when actually he had a very human response to what took place.
Mhm.
He was always envious. Now he can't provide something to his queen that his brother, who everybody loved as opposed to him, even though he was functioning the way he was supposed to function, but
Mhm.
everybody loved his brother. And so he's automatically envious. And now, dog, my woman wants you too.
Yep.
Oh man, this you know what I mean? But nobody looks at it like that because we didn't deal with concepts of good and evil. We dealt with concepts of nature, human and otherwise,
Exactly.
and how those things behave.
Mhm.
But from a westernized concept, we want to look at it as good and evil, and it don't always work like that. There are shades of gray in humanity.
All the time. And even with Satesh, like how you said, like, you know, he had a very human thing, but yet Nebuchadnezzar was redeemed through her service to make right. He ends up Satesh redeems because who protects Ra on the solar bar? Who kills
Facts,
Apep all the time? Yet
facts,
even when he screwed up and pretty much almost destroyed humanity and was
facts.
super in his feelings, he still protects the solar bark.
Yeah.
The-
People don't look at it like Haru, as he went back and reclaimed his father's kingdom. He could have destroyed Satesh, but
Mhm.
instead he repurposed him. Because if we dealing with ourselves, our higher self and our lower self, Haru represent the higher self,
Mhm.
Satesh, if you will, represent our lower self or lower instinct, that is all us and it's all a part of us. You
Mhm.
can't get rid of any part of you because you have to use it all.
Yep.
And so he repurposed it. He didn't destroy it. He said, you know what? I need that part of the human element. So let me repurpose it and put it at the head of Ra's boards to
Mhm.
keep chaos at bay.
All
And
the
what does that aspect, that lower instinct, provide? So you use the example out of the blue. Now my Satesh would have been like, bruh, you want to catch a fade? Because we can pull over. That's what my lower instinct would have said. But but your Haru instinct kicked in, and you was like, let me relate to this. He might be having an issue. Let me let him go on about his business. And so, but that's all still a part of us as human beings. And you had Satesh at the head of Ra's boards, keeping chaos at bay, so you wouldn't say, "Pull over and we can catch a fade, bro." To
Yep.
put it in layman terms.
Yep. You
So
could always do that. You could always do that. And again, that's that whole thing of like how you said it's not black and white, because as we were kind of jokingly saying about Sekhmet, like Sekhmet is an incredibly powerful healer. Like Satesh is an incredible protector. Like Sebek is an incredible protector. So we can invoke without turning into. all
Right.
the time. And like that's what their stories remind us of. Like, no, like don't go full, don't go full blown with this because then you're gonna end up like I say to my best friend all the time. I was like, you know what? I don't have no jail money. And if anybody's ever watched the Dave Chappelle when Keeping It Real goes wrong, I'm like, sis, you do not want to eat fruit cocktail off the prison floor. It's dirty. And I
There
say
you
that
go.
all the time. So when you know, like, ooh, I could be Satesh in this moment. But what ends up happening and what does he end up having to go through? He eventually overcomes because we like to think all of us are redeemable.
Right.
We all can be redeemed, but do we do the work to actually be redeemed? Like eventually he had to give in to the wisdom of Jehuti. Eventually he got saved by his own sister whose husband he killed. So, you know what I mean? And again, that goes back to that I'm an individual. Like, no, the hell you not. Because sometimes you get saved by somebody. Sometimes you get a helping hand by somebody who used to be your enemy.
Yep.
And that's just life. And that's okay. But again,
When you really examine these stories, whatever version, because it's multiple versions of the same story, but whatever version, it's very relatable when you look at it from a human lens.
mm-hmm.
And people, because again, we're looking at it from a Western lens instead of an Africanized lens, we looking at it as, oh, that don't make sense, or that's pagan, or that's no. That's why we have to work to de-whitenize ourselves, or de-Europeanize ourselves and re-Africanize ourselves so that we can examine these ancient texts the way we should examine them so we can see them for what they really were meant to see them as. And it's just, that's just what it is. And people have a hard time accepting that because they so ensconced in what it is or what tradition they've been indoctrinated in. And that's not a knock. That's just what it is. And so
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on and explaining what it is to be a comedic practitioner, your journey, what it means to you, and how it's impacted your life. I cannot say do I enough for you sharing that experience. And I'm gonna let you close out. Please tell everybody about the Facebook group, the YouTube page, Instagram, any social media you have, throw it out there.
Okay, so I'm predominantly on Instagram, Menyet Ankh and Maat. TikTok is the same thing. I'm just trying to get into the TikTok world. It's interesting. On YouTube, it's my full name, Menyet Ankh and Maat Menta is my last name. And my blog slash my soon to be opening Aquaja or my store is on my website at menyetankhmaat.com.
All right. All right. So please follow the sister. Check out the website, the Instagram, the TikTok, the Facebook group, the YouTube page. Like, share, and subscribe. Follow her. You will be educated and edutained and edified. I didn't even realize I had joined the Facebook group and at the YouTube page and didn't even realize it was the same person till after like 4 views, and I was like, wait a minute. Oh, okay. So it did. I'm a little slow sometimes. So, but it all lined up. So yeah, definitely check her out. Follow her, like, share, and subscribe, and of course, like, share, and subscribe to this channel and this platform. And hopefully, we'll have our queen on again to come on and break some things down to us. And again, do for coming on, sis. I definitely appreciate you. And this has been another episode of Paradigm Shift. Did you have any final words?
Just Nahem or Dua. I am so appreciative on so many levels to just be able to have a conversation and just kind of get some of the feedback from some of the people. Overall, it was a wonderful experience.
No doubt. No doubt. All right, family. That is it for this edition of Paradigm Shift TV 314. And that is peace. I am your brother, Pianki Pata Muntu Nefra Amun Ra. We'll be back at you again, or should I say black at you again, with another installment. Stay tuned. We are out. That's peace.